FAST5000 evening. It's one of 5 nights of great 5,000 metre running and other middle distance races as well, sponsored by On. And these are on-track nights. It's the third in the 2023 series. We've had Mount Sac over in the USA. Highgate, of course, was some 3 weeks ago in London. The next venue will be Vienna, and then there will be Melbourne in December, which includes that Zaspek 10,000 metre race. Many folk feel that the overall presentation of athletics hasn't changed in many years, but there is now a big push to create a spectacle around distance running, and the shoe brand On are very much at the forefront of that movement. Tonight's the third in this 2023 series, as I've said, and there are no less than 9 men's 5,000 metre races and 5 for the women. We're focusing on the best of those, of course. We can't show all 14 of them to you, but there's also 2 men's 1,500 metre races and a very high calibre women's mile as well. James, a lot to look forward to.
Absolutely, Tim. It's been a special few weeks so far. Obviously, night of the 10,000 metre PBs was such a well-supported event. And obviously, cast your mind back to the start of May, Mount Sac, where this series started. And it's really building, and just the quality of athletes. When you think about over 100 top quality athletes will be on show, as you said, over the 5,000 metre distance, but we've got some very fast 1,500 metre races, some quality mile races. But also when you start to think about chasing those World Championship qualifying times in the A races, that's exactly something that we're going to be doing. And it really is an opportunity, for a crowd sometimes of people that haven't had the opportunity to stand on the trackside and watch world-class athletics. But there has been races going on since midday. And there's all standards, all abilities, all ages. There's circus acts going on. So there is something for everyone.
Absolutely right. Yes, those of you who are familiar with the Night of the 10,000s, the great evening of 10,000 metre racing up in Highgate on Hampstead Heath in North London, you will know the feeling that is being generated at each of these meetings, and it's very much the case today. It's a crowded stadium in Paris. The weather, of course, while it's a little warm for 5,000 metre racing, good job there are no 10,000s. It's around 28, 29 degrees in the French capital and much the same in the south of England as well. Indeed, most of central northern Europe basking in very, very high early June temperatures. So that might affect performances a little bit, James. When you think that we've had a cold, wet spring, people haven't really had time to adjust to summer heat.
Yeah, there's a little bit of breezy conditions at the moment, but if you looked at last night's performances in Paris in the Diamond League, 3 world records over the middle and long distances. So when that wind does drop, the temperature itself, it has been quite high today. Again, 28, 29 degrees, but again, it's meant to continually drop throughout the evening. And if we can hit that kind of sweet spot. Distance runners, don't want too much of a breeze, but we have got some quality pacemakers. They're going to do a great job in the early laps and make sure that our runners are well protected. But it's a beautiful day here, and I think that those fast times are going to be flowing.
Well, the first race in our coverage, we're having 1 or 2 vision problems. It's supposed to be at 1:30 hour, so no need to panic just yet. They're big fields, aren't they, James? I mean, this is the norm, I suppose, in US collegiate athletics and increasingly in 10,000s on the track as well. And now at 5,000, 20, even 30 runners in a 5,000 is not that much of a rarity these days.
It's not, but I think that's down to the popularity of the meet. Obviously, this is the 3rd edition of the Fast 5000 in Paris, obviously brought to you by On. And I think that, when you look back at the results, and I think it's of location, a venue, runners want to travel to, and therefore, they're trying to accommodate, they've actually added. Originally, it was scheduled for 12, 5,000 metre races. It's actually gone up to 14. So we've had 9 men's races in total, 5 women's races, and then as you talked about, we've got 29, 30 plus in those races. That's the popularity. And it means when you look down at the start list, Tim, as we've been doing, people are traveling far and wide to be here, and I think that's testament to the organisation, but also the fact people want these bespoke meets where they can turn up at almost any ability and run fast.
No, absolutely right. And you'll say, James, I know that you would say that. But for me, 5,000 metre running is kind of the meeting point of middle and long distance running. It's where you really do need, if you're going to be good at 5,000, you've got to have 1,500 metres strength and speed. You've got to have 10,000 metres strength. And that's a difficult chemistry, if you like, a difficult combination of abilities that when you get it right, and I touched it once or twice many years ago when I was a good 5,000 meter runner. It's a lovely fitness to have because you can run a good 800 and you can actually run a pretty good half marathon off that fitness.
Well, for those that don't know their stats, Tim's dumbing himself down there, fourth in the Olympic Games in Los Angeles, over 5,000 metres. Now, myself as a coach, I totally agree. It is a tough distance to get right. Athletes come at it from different directions. Obviously, you've got those more predominant middle distance runners, and we're going to see some of those tonight. But also, you've got some of obviously your longer distance with bigger engines coming from 10,000 half marathon and marathon runners stepping down. But it's that balance between the right amount of speed, the right amount of endurance. That if you're coaching someone, if you just tip it too much either way, you don't get the desired effect. So it's something that, coaches, we talk a lot about trying to get that perfect 5,000. And also, I think in terms of events, you can probably back me up on this, Tim, it hurts a lot more than some other events.
Well, I try not to bang the drum too much about it, James. But I mean, maybe because I was not really a natural 5,000 meter runner. I always found them very painful in the latter stages. And, you hear people saying, toughest event of all is the 200 or toughest event of them all is 400. And I'm thinking, hang on, it only lasts a minute, less than a minute, 30 seconds or whatever. You want to try and get out there and be hurting for 10 minutes or more. Well, it looks like we've got our pictures back. That is wonderful. If you are just joining us, let me just reiterate a very warm welcome to this on-track night, the Fast 5000, coming to you from the Parc des Sports at Montesson to the northwest of Paris. Myself, Tim Hutchings, and James Thie, with you now for the next couple of hours. We have got no less than 14 5,000 metre races taking place through this afternoon. They actually started some hours ago. There are 9 men's 5,000 and 5 for the women. And in the middle distances, 2 men's 1,500 metre races we will be covering, and a very high calibre women's mile. There's the local French commentators on site, Alexandre Brunel and Vincent Guillot. We are not alongside them right now, but nonetheless able to enjoy these pictures and hopefully some fabulous racing, James. And just to go over again for those viewers who have only just joined us, there's a lot to look forward here tonight. And, we are hoping for world-class times in that men's A 1500, the women's mile, and the A race of the men's 5,000, if not the B races.
Yeah, we are, and we've got the first of our races coming up on our live stream now. That's going to be the women's B race in the 5,000 metres. That goes off in 5 minutes. And again, we've got 29 athletes. When you look back at the last few years of this meet, I think it's 2021, there was 60% running personal best. Last year, that went up to 68%. I think it was in the 90s of people that got season's best. So again, that's why people have travelled here. That's why there are stellar fields. And I think there'll be some quality athletes in this B race trying to sometimes prove a point. When I was looking down through the results and those that have run well here, obviously, if you run well, you get rewarded. I know that's something at night, the 10,000 metre personal best that Ben Pocci definitely does. If you win one of the lower races, you get an upgrade the next year, Tim.
Absolutely right. That's the way it should be. I mean, it is a distance to 5,000 metres that is user-friendly, isn't it? Just going back to the sort of mass participation element of this. When you think about the park run movement that is spread around the world now, which is absolutely massive in the UK, 5,000 metres is a distance that so many more people can get their heads around and contemplate taking part in. It's about 3 miles. Whereas 10K, 6 miles, is a long way. And 5,000 is a great introductory distance to that. I am actually really impressed, though, James, that so many people have chosen to not just do their local park run or a 5K in their local park somewhere, perhaps around Europe, but actually take on a track 5,000, which is tough.
Yeah, you're right, Tim, and that's the amount of heats we've had in this and the amounts of people sometimes making their debuts over this distance as well. But there are so many more opportunities, and that's what this provides. Next week, the same in Vienna, which is the next on-track nights edition, just a week after. So again, some athletes are going back to back. There is enough time to recover. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to this first race of our stream tonight. And I can see Saskia Millard, the British athlete, on the outside. They're going to be an important factor today. Those athletes with pacer on their vest, they've got a job to set the early pace. In this race, we're looking at around about the 15:45. If the paces are there, they can keep an eye on the wave lights on the inside. So, for example, this first race, the wave lights are going to be, I think, beamed at around about 15:45, I think it is. and so they can give an eye on those lights. But I think the pace is having a physical body on the track, cutting out that wind. You can see it's still slightly breezy. But yeah, those 29 athletes behind are going to be following Saskia in the early stages. And the fastest lady in this race, Hannah Stillman from the USA. She's an on-supported athlete. So again, I think, Amit, you know well, Tim, the Millrose Games in the Armoury. She was at 10th place in 8:54. So she's got good 3,000 metre pedigree. She's run 15:30. So we're looking for, that clocking to be within the kind of 15:45, which is around about just over 5 minutes per mile, about 76 seconds per lap, and around about 3:09 per kilometre.
Well, the job for the pacemakers with a pack this big is perhaps amplified a little bit. You know, pacemakers in Diamond League meetings and high caliber track race gatherings where people are very familiar. People are very familiar seeing have a job to do, but they're very, very high caliber. They're usually world-class runners themselves, and getting the splits right almost to the 10th of a second is pretty common, and it's expected of them. But here tonight, James, with such a big pack behind the pacemakers, it's important that they do get around that 3:09 per kilometre tempo, at least for the first couple of kilometres. I hope the wind doesn't affect things.
Yeah, and you can see the start lists are coming up on the screen, and obviously the DNS stands for does not start. You often get that with athletes that either they didn't make it because of travel, maybe they're woken up not feeling the best, or they've opted for another race in another venue. So yeah, there's a few which might be make a little bit less traffic in the early stages, but it's still a very healthy field. You can see they're starting on the back straight, 12 and a half laps for the 5,000 metre distance, and they're expecting around about 5,000 spectators watching today. There's loads of food outlets, there's loads of media interest. We saw the local TV production, so this is going out across France as well, and that's something that On really want to kind of build, the kind of brand awareness, but also showing the support to the local Paris running community as well. And obviously just generally really supporting high quality, but obviously running for all abilities as well, Tim.
Absolutely. Good to see the so many people turning up. This is the home track of the Athletic Club de Montesson. So it's well used, and many of the youngsters will be out there tonight taking inspiration from these senior athletes who will provide some wonderful racing, I'm sure. James, there are obviously targets this evening in these elite races, and we've had a lot of races through the afternoon which have not been elite races, but just a great vehicle with which athletes can progress to a better standard. But there are targets for these elite athletes, aren't there, which are World Championship qualifying standards. I mean, there's some serious stuff going on with the World Championships in Budapest in late orders coming down the tube at us.
Yeah, we've probably got 3 races tonight where that's going to be something that we are going to be chasing. Go back to those wave lights. In the women's 5,000 A race, we're looking at that 14:57. So it's going to be the rouge lights, the red lights are going to be chased. For the men, it's 13:07. That is testament to the way the sport has progressed, how quick people have got to run to make a world championship team. And then in the 1500, it's now 3:34.2. And we've got athletes that have run inside that this year, athletes that are getting close to that. And again, they're going to be chasing, obviously, the wave lights. But as we saw last night in Paris in the stadium, just a few miles from here, that sometimes people run away from those wave lights. And last night, those wave lights were world records. Today, it could be a ticket to Budapest in later on in the summer. But going back to this B race now, we're moments away from starting. You can see the pacer. They still start their watches. They still put their hand on their wrists, making sure that they don't always trust the electronic timing in case it fails. Obviously, the wave lights are there as well. But yeah, you can see Saskia on the very outside. And she's entrusted with the early pace. So anything around that kind of 75, 76 seconds per lap. And that will kind of get the runners in a nice rhythm. And you can see originally it was scheduled for around about 28, 29 runners. There it seemed like there's a few that have obviously stepped away from the track. So you can see 2 lines. It's called a waterfall start, Tim. But yeah, there can sometimes be a bit of chaos when they come together after that first 100 metres.
Well, let's hope there is no chaos. I do sometimes feel that track races, when there's more than, say, 20 in them, look almost like the start of a cross-country race as they get under starters' orders.
So they're off first time. Looks like Ellie Twentyman's a DNS, the British athlete, doesn't start, but a good British contingent also in there. Got Kirsty Walker, Amy Griffiths, Rachel Franklin, and Tessa McCormack, as well as a very strong set of French athletes that take to the track. Remember, it's over 12 and a half laps, so 3.1 miles. And it'll be interesting to see who the athlete that settles in behind. Could be Leah Haji there, the French athlete, 25-year-old, on the inside in the black singlet, wearing 5.39. So she's got a lifetime best of 15.48. And national champion last year, Tim, in 2021. So we're looking to recapture that bit of form. But going out behind the pacer and going with the pacer is so important in these early stages to make sure that we have a trainer and almost a single file of fast running behind.
Well, no, that's exactly right. Good that these athletes can get a race in early June in good weather, good conditions. It might be a little bit warm for some of them, but, you know, I always found 5,000, when we've already talked about how 5,000 is a tough old distance to get right, because it's where the middle distance and long distance disciplines clash, really. They crash, and if you can get that crash, instead of it being a perfect storm, turn it into a symphony, then it's a lovely fitness to have. But I always found that your first 5,000 or 2 or 3 5,000s this summer were a little bit hard to get into. They were almost like pipe opening races, and then you warm to the task. So my first race would always be, I don't know, 20 or 30 seconds off my personal best, and then you'd gradually home in on your best times as you got later in the summer and towards the major targets in the summer, the championships.
Yeah, and also athletes are coming from different distances, as we said earlier. You know, when you go through, some have raced on the road quite recently. There's been some high-quality 5K road races. Some are coming from the 10K half marathon background. Some of it we saw in the European Cross Country Championships in Turin before Christmas. But yeah, I mean, many of them, you know, are coming from this being potentially their first 5,000 of the year. Going through, a couple of them have been on the track this year, but you know, it could have been in a slightly lower key 5,000 meter race, whereas this is tailored, given the fact that there are 5 women's races. Every athlete in this race has been tailored into this B race, and they, for some of them, have been within a stone's throw of that A race. But they're coming through. We're looking for anything under the 2:30 mark. Means that Saskia Millard, a multiple British University medalist, she's a very well supported athlete at University of Birmingham and a quality athlete over multiple distances. So they've got a strong pacemaker, Tim. And again, it's so interesting to see how long pacemakers can go. Obviously over 5,000. Anything over 2,000 is great. If they can get to 3,000, then that's probably the desired distance, wouldn't you think?
No, absolutely right. That would be a great job if she can get to 3,000. Gosh, that would be, well, we're looking at 3:09 per kilometre, so that would be 9:27. That's quite impressive running from the front. And she goes through 1,000 there, in about 3:06 and a half, 3:07. So really good pacemaking at the front end. Superb job so far.
It is, and there you can see there's a break already. So it looks like 4 athletes have gone with Millard, the pacemaker, and then there's a sort of a 30-40 metre gap. So athletes have to make a decision quite early on. Obviously, the pace up front and going down the kind of pacing sheets, there's probably, 4 or 5 athletes that are sub 15-minute runners. And then there's a whole pack within that 16 to kind of 16:20 mark. And you can probably see that playing out on the track already. They've gone through that first kilometre. They were inside the 3:09 that we needed. 5:59 is the athlete, which is Alice Quinner, the French athlete. She's a strong athlete, sub 33-minute 10K runner, so that's probably why she's at the lead of that chase group. But yeah, there's enough almost safety in numbers in that chase group at the moment.
I'm surprised how quickly the this small pack have eased away from the main pack, I have to say. Millard is the ideal pacemaker, though. She's tall, and therefore, if there is any wind around, provides significantly more protection than a smaller body might do. And she's up to the task at the moment, looking really good.
Yeah, that lead group's down to 3 now. So 1 athlete has dropped off that lead group. And so the next split we get is the 2-kilometre split. So we're looking at anything inside the 6:20 mark. You can see those wave lights being chased. 15:50 is the rouge lights. So at the moment, the chasers behind, they haven't broken 16, many of those runners. So they're all running towards PBs. The lights on the front, we believe they've been set at 15:30 pace. So that's even slightly faster than what we were anticipating at the beginning. So at the moment, everyone in this lead group and chase group are on pace for lifetime best. And that second one, the blue light at the back, or so I think it's white light, sorry, is at 16:10. So almost the whole field operating around the 16:10 and under mark, Tim.
Well, that is really good strength in depth. And when you think this is a B race, now we've got about 5.5 minutes on the clock, and we're looking at 3:09 per kilometre, so 6:18 for 2K is the target. That's about 40 seconds away. If they can hit that, and they did build a bit of a cushion with that first kilometre split. That first kilometre, about 3:07 I got it at, so they can relax a little bit in this one, this lead pack, or they can push on and go well below the target time. Remember, 15:45 was the allotted target time, the pace. If they can keep churning out 3:07s, well, they'll clearly go 10 seconds inside that, maybe more.
Yeah, that gap is opening, almost every single stride at the moment. Millar's doing a great job. This is the 2 kilometre split. So we were anticipating 6:18 if they were on the 15:45 pace, but they're way inside that. And the chase group behind, some athletes that we kind of expected to be in the lead group. Now, Yahya is the Algerian athlete. She's got a 15:45 personal best. And she's also a very handy steeplechaser as well, 9:48. 7:41 half marathon athlete. So Elisa Pomero, the Italian athlete, again on paper I expected her to be in that lead group. So at the moment, 3 athletes have moved away. I think we've had a late addition, Tim, I think to the start list as well. The athlete wearing I think it's 7:08. So we will try and get an update on the name of the athlete, because they've decided already to go past the pacemaker. With the pace being quick, you can see that is 7:46 on the outside of that group as well. And there's a big chase, and there's now some gaps being made from behind, Tim. I think some of the early paces already paying some of the athletes.
Yes, that gap is growing all the time, isn't it? I didn't get the 2K split, I must admit. I'm guilty of not spotting that.
It was just over 6:10, Tim, so yeah, so it was quick.
Just over 6:10. Well, in that case, they are well inside the target tempo, James. That athlete 7:08, by the way, I think we're now finding out it's Samia Hassan. But yeah, she's a very late addition.
Yeah, very late, but I tell you what, she is on time at the moment in terms of running. So you can see going under those marquees, something that was kind of brought out by Night of the 10,000. So those marquees over on the track, they do offer protection from the wind as well, but also the noise in them with the crowd being that close to the barrier, Tim. The athlete talk about it at Highgate, really driving the athletes on, and in the latter stages, the noise and the atmosphere in those marquees really builds.
Well, the atmosphere will continue to build. I always think that night racing provides one of the best environments for distance racing, because the winds tend to drop and the darkness creates, with the lights in the arena, a very intimate feel. But look at this, Samia Hassan on her own by the looks of things. And is that a big acceleration that's gone in, James? Because she is solo, and I can't see anybody else near her.
Yeah, that's a real increase in pace, or at least maintaining it. So the next split we get is the 3 kilometres. So when she comes down, she'll be seeing 5 laps to run. And obviously going through the marquee again, getting lots and lots of cheers. A great crowd. I think that's the mascot. Looks like the hedgehog. Saskia Millar jogging in the background. Her job has been very well done, setting them on this way. So you can see the clock ticking over 9:10. So when the athlete comes through here, it will signal, yes, just over a mile of running to go. So, yeah, 2 kilometres. And there's the gap back, and the chase behind, and whether they could do anything at the moment. That's Ava Clavier So she's got a 16:11 personal best, so she's running way inside that at the moment. And Elisa Pomero, who I mentioned earlier there, running 5:35, the Italian 23-year-old, desperately trying to give chase. But at the moment, they're running on lifetime best. But Hassan at the front, Tim, the speed she's gone through that opening 3 kilometres, she's way in front of those wave lights at the moment.
Well, I got her at about 9:14 at 3K. I mean, that is fabulous when you think the target time was 9:27. She is running, what, about 4 seconds quicker per kilometre than was scheduled. And if that is the case, then Hassan, well, just trying to look at her CV, her lifetime best I got is 16:20. And if that is correct, then she is on for something like a 40 or 50 second improvement on her lifetime best. It's quite astonishing.
Yeah, she did that in Djibouti though, didn't she? So that could be obviously in fairly tougher conditions, but she's definitely operating way inside that, almost a minute inside that. So she's got through the 4 laps to go. That's always a psychological thing as a 5,000 metre runner, seeing 4 laps to go, knowing you've got a mile left of track running. That's something these athletes would do multiple times. But obviously, yeah, the gap behind, and also looks like the wind's dying down. So as we said earlier, that if the wind does die down, the athletes will definitely keep accelerating their performances. And Hassan at the moment is doing that. She goes down the back straight. Great crowds, Tim, and there's a great energy here tonight, isn't there?
Well, there is, and it's lovely when the crowds are on the infield and on the outside as well. The athletes are sort of running through a tunnel of people for much of the time. Hassan, though, she's very compact. She's small and compact. I want to say the wind's almost missing her. She manages to avoid the wind almost. So she provides hardly any resistance to the wind. Looking really strong going through there with, what, I think 3.5 laps to go. She ran a 73-second lap to the point where she's got 4 laps to go. The lap times are coming up. Let's see what she manages this time. But she's running metronomically and moving really well. And that gap is growing all the time between her and her pursuers, James.
Yes, it is. And at the moment, it's a performance worthy of an A race, because if she keeps this going, she's going to be inside that 15:30 mark. But yeah, gap is growing to the chasers behind. As you said, a compact runner. And she bided her time early on in the first couple of kilometres, but then almost just had to go. I think she felt like the pace was just starting to drop slightly. And yeah, you can see now the chasers behind. Looks like that is one of the athletes going through 3.9. That is Haji there, the French athlete. And running well, 5.38. That's Rachel Franklin. So she was, I think, ran in the Commonwealth Games, sub 16 minutes for the first time at the British Miners Club. And does so much for running in the UK. But yeah, Franklin at the moment running very well. The Commonwealth Games athlete are back in 5th place. But at the moment, I think having gone through 4 kilometres, Tim, we're now into the last just over 2 laps of running. But yeah, we're inside that pace for a sub 15:30 clock in.
Well, when she came through the line, and she comes through this time, there'll be 2 laps to go. The last time she came through, it was 73.8 per lap. She's running 73s. That 4th kilometre was a 3:06. And when you think that the kilometre target per kilometre was 3:09, you can see why she's smashing these splits that were predicted for this race. There we are. That's a 74.8. That's a slight indication that she's maybe a little bit tired there. That time appearing at the bottom of the screen, James. But with just over a lap and a half to run, she's got the race won now. It's between her and the clock, but she's going to run a massive personal best.
She is, and it'd be interesting to see if she can find something in this last stages of the race. Sometimes runners just save a bit. That penultimate lap probably hurts a little bit more than kicking home towards the finishing line. I think the fact she's in a pair of on spikes, that's definitely going to help her in this last 600 metres. And the quality of running that she's doing right now, she's going to start lapping some runners. And when you look at the strength of the field as well, I don't think many of them would have thought that they'd be lapped. But I think that's the quality of Hassan's running right now. As I said, it's almost A race quality running in this women's B race.
Well, it is, and you feel as though maybe she should have been in the A race. We want to know. Nobody can predict if an athlete turns up with super fitness compared to what they've done in the past. And of course, there can be a mismatch, and that's unfortunate. But she and the pursuers in 2nd place, Aude Clavier from the Amiens Club is in 2nd. In 3rd place, Leila Hadji is from the Fontainebleau Club. She's back in 3rd. They're all running on their own. It's tough. She goes through the bell there, James, in about 14:12. Brilliant running.
Brilliant running. She's going to be way inside that 15:30 time, so she's going to be more towards the 15:20. She's rallying now. You can see she's picking up. The arms and legs are definitely starting to move a bit faster. And she's gone through the 300-meter to go mark down the back straight. There'll be loads of noise on the back straight. There's loads of fans, loads of spectators. What the great thing about this meet is they're on the inside and the outside. It often meets, it's just the outside, but the energy is always around you, everywhere on the track. And you can see she's got that last 200 meters, team. She's 3 miles in and she's heading towards a massive lifetime best. 16:20 wouldn't have got her in the A race originally, but the time she's going to knock out now would definitely get her in the A race next year.
Well, she'll challenge for a high position in the A race next year. This is brilliant, and she has been able to pick it up, James, this last lap. You know, that is always tough too, especially when you know you've got the race won.
It is. It's a super hard thing to do, but I tell you what, she's done it to absolute perfection. Samia Hassan, she's going to hit the clock. Look at that, just over the 15:21 mark. That is a massive lifetime best. We make it a 59-second lifetime best on the track. She gets held up with the winner's sign. And I tell you what, she's going to be holding on to that. She's going to be absolutely delighted with that. And it'd be interesting to see what position that gets her in the A race later on, as athletes now streaming down towards the home straight, looking for some big lifetime bests as well. So there's some quality running from all of the runners here, Tim.
Well, Lord Clavier that has come second there, and she's run around 15:52. That is against her personal best of 16:11. 5:52, James. That is Femke Rosbergen. She had a 16:09 personal best. She's run about 16:01. The times, I'll tell you what, the theme of this was Fast 5000. Fast and fun is something I read. And I tell you what, several of these athletes will think they've had fun with the scale of these personal bests.
Yeah, Juliet Thomas, another one of those across the line. I think that was 15:51. Sophia Benfairs as well. Also a lifetime best. Also just given the nations her debut over the line. We've had Belgium, Netherlands, the UK. Lots of quality French athletes. Lots of UK athletes crossing the line in lifetime best as well. That's Fathia Sanchez as well. I think she's going to be outside her lifetime best. You can see on the screen the times coming up. As you said, Clavier there, Tim. That is a personal best. Rosenbergen, just behind her, goes inside 16 minutes. That's a bit of a benchmark as well. Get inside that 16-minute mark. But Hassan on the screen there, you can see it is a meet record, because last year Haban Hamid was the fastest female, 16 flat. So in the B race, we've absolutely smashed the meeting record in the first race. And you can see just the amount of PBs already on that main screen there. We've got 5 PBs out of 7 athletes that made it already, Tim, in just the first of our live races on tonight's stream.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. I mean, Rachel Franklin from the Isle of Man has run a personal best. Didn't quite get under 16 minutes, but has run a personal best nonetheless. So it's been superb, and just a chance to look at the pacemaking there. The job was done so well by Saskia Millard. Set it up wonderfully. A little bit quicker than was planned on paper. Maybe she was getting urges, shouts from the athletes behind her, I don't know. But she did a wonderful job to set it up so well.
Yeah, she did, and that's going to be a theme, hopefully, of tonight. You know, when we start looking down at the quality of times that we're going to try and hit, we're trying to hit inside World Championship qualifying times. And if you're going to stay with us all the way to French time, which is 9:45, the men's A race, we're looking at trying to break 13 minutes of 5,000 meters, which is still that kind of absolute world class benchmark. But behind that 13:07, they'll be chasing World Championship qualifying marks. But talking about chasing qualifying times, this lady here, I think we can see her run even faster. When you look at that World Champs qualifying time, Tim, which is 14:57, I see an athlete here that can challenge that 15-minute barrier.
No, absolutely. When you think she's run the whole second half of the race on her own from the front, no company, a little bit of wind out there, warm conditions, James. I would say if it's 25, 27 degrees, that's not ideal. That's a little bit on the warm side. You know, you don't need cold conditions like you get at the beginning of the Berlin Marathon every September, but you need cooler than sort of about 25. Around 20 would be ideal. They already have the top 8.
Yeah, and again, you can see the SB, that season's best PB, personal best, and obviously the MR, that meeting record. And again, the fact that it's absolutely smashed the meeting record out of sight in that B race. I don't think we anticipated that B race to be as fast as that. It took us by surprise. As I said, a late entry, but I tell you what a spectacular entry to that. And when you go down that second page there, look at that. PBs and SBs are the theme of tonight already. So following on from 2021 and 2022, those high percentage of personal best and season's best, we're already on our way, Tim, aren't we?
We absolutely are. Do you know what? I mean, a shout out to the British Miners Club, who in the UK for several decades have put on races where there's pacemakers for athletes of so many standards, going down to second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth races at some meetings over 1,500 or 3,000 or 800. And I think what we've seen there, James, is the effect of good pacemaking and a big occasion for athletes who normally don't get to perform on such a stage. I mean, the majority of athletes in the race have set personal bests. It's absolutely astonishing.
Yeah, and I think that what we're seeing on the screen as well, having some entertainment as well, being able to come down to a track meet and have a beer, or just the have a beer and cheer in lane 3 is something that Highgate have put a hashtag on. And I think that's something, when on running, we're looking at events and how to really build a culture, but also kind of like, make things fun, build a kind of motion to racing. And that's something that you want. You want to bring the sport to a wider audience. And the fact you've got children here, you can see that mini track on the inside. You've got friends and family will come to a track meet, and it's not just watching you run around a track. They've got to really love you to do that, Tim, haven't they? But they're going to experience something. There's something to do. I've got loads of stuff on the infield, whether it's trying shoes, whether it's getting involved with different challenges, and the fact you can watch some circus acts and have a good time as well. It's an evening of really enjoyable athletics. And obviously, actually not just been an evening, it's been a day of enjoyable athletics, but other things going on just make it super exciting.
No, absolutely right. And this has got to be done. Other sports have been putting on this sort of entertainment around the main action for many, many years. And track and field now getting up to speed. I know this is something that excites Sebastian Coe, President of World Athletics, the global governing body of track and field. Seb has appeared at the Night of the 10,000s, the North London version of this meeting, and wholeheartedly approves. It brings excitement, it brings a new audience to track and field. It brings also, James, what I really love too, is that intimacy. Athletes, or spectators rather, can get up so close to the athletes. And there's plenty of sports where you just can't do that.
Yeah, I think that's the other thing, being able to be, so close and create an atmosphere. Other sports, sometimes have been better at promoting themselves. But also, I think, giving yourself, runners a chance of all abilities to be part of this as well. You don't often get to be on the same field of play as professional athletes that are, some of them will go to the World Championships this year and potentially medal, but you're on the same track as them in the same program. And that's something also is just like building this kind of atmosphere to an event. And I think that runners love music, runners love an atmosphere there. And there's nothing more demotivating than turn up to an event running 12 and a half laps with a couple of people watching. This is a show. And I tell you what, that first race that we just saw then, where Hassan took off, she was almost performing to the crowd as if she was breathing fire like the lady on the screen is right now.
Well, the name of this meeting, Fast 5000, started with a Fast 5000. It is couldn't have been more appropriate, could it? The way that first race has pulverized the planned splits, the planned times, and produced much, much quicker timings for plenty of the runners out there in that women's B5000. The next race in the track is the men's B5000, and that's a field of sizable. It's about 20 athletes in it. The plan is to go out at 13:25 tempo. That's 2:41 per kilometre. We will see whether or not they too smash that target with a pretty useful pacemaker in there for them. The crowd are loving it. It's like hanging out at a social event as much as at a sports event, isn't it? Great to see.
Yeah, it's something that people put on their calendar now. It's like going to a concert. It's like going to the theatre. I think, watching a race unfold, distance racing is as exciting as anything. The way the drama, kind of develops lap by lap. And, it's something that, if 10,000 meters can be super exciting, then 5,000 meters can be unbelievably exciting as well. I think the fact we're seeing children with massive smiles on their faces, absorbing it. I've seen a load of cowbells as well. I've heard a load of cowbells. So they'll be rattling their way around. It'll almost feel like a kind of a Tour de France atmosphere, when they're going up to those mountain climbs with the crowd almost on top of them. With the noise, the atmosphere. But I said the fact people can come here and socialise. And as I said, when you bring friends and family to a meet that's fun as well, they'll be begging you to run it next year and be part of it in 2024. And the fact that On are supporting these meets and these track nights are getting bigger and better. As you said earlier, next week we've only got a week and we're into Vienna. That's going to be another spectacular evening. But then, the series finishes in December, supporting and what is a great meet, the Zatopek 10 after Emil Zatopek. The Run Czech guys, don't they? They love and have always been kind of showcasing the great work that Emil Zatopek did for his home country. But the fact that race out in Melbourne still kind of showcases him as a world-class runner, and I love the fact that On are supporting that, Tim. That's great.
You said it, yeah. Well, the men for the B5000 should be gathering on the far side of the track now. They're due off in, a couple of minutes' time, 8 o'clock local time in Paris. The field has a really good spread of various nationalities. There's Swedes and South Africans and Swiss, French, of course, Algerians, Irish. There's Keelan Kilrehill goes in this one from the Moy Valley Club. He's a 28:01 10,000 meter runner. And because these races feature athletes who are, some of them are 1,500 specialists moving up to 5,000. Some of them are road runners, half marathon runners, even marathon runners I've seen in one or two of the bios I've been looking through. You get a variety of athletes coming into you get athletes coming to this with a variety of different race plans, James, don't you? You get some who want to sit in there and kick and go for the win. You want others. There are others who want to push on hard from the front and try and make it a real test of strength and produce a time that reflects all the hard training they've put in.
Yeah, some will know exactly the shape they're in. Others won't. It's a bit like a game of poker out there. Some will keep their cards very close to their chest because they're just not sure what hand they have. And as we said earlier, if you tip the balance or, you tip the speed too soon in a 5K, it's a very long way. But for others, coming from that kind of, 10K, half marathon background that have massive engines, they won't want to hang around. They will want to make sure the pace is honest, but they just won't have the top speed that some of the other runners have in those latter stages. Those that have, some really good 1,500 meter pedigree, that they're going to be chomping at the bit if they can stay there. So it's a classic one of speed and strength. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Athletes, especially, this time, we're still fairly early in the track season in terms of knowing exactly the shape they're in, knowing exactly how they've wintered. They may have only had one or two very low-key races into that. That's why this is going to be fascinating. I'm excited about this B race.
Well, if you're excited about the B race, imagine how excited you're going to get about the A race when there's guys who've broken 13 minutes in the A race. I don't know if we'll see a sub-13 clocking. I know that in Italy last week at the Diamond League, there were 13 men under 13 minutes in Florence in the Diamond League there. That was a world record in effect.
Yeah, there's some quality runners over that distance at the moment. And again, we saw that with, women's running last night. Faith Kipyegon running the women's world record over 5,000 meters. So France and Paris is hot right now for 5,000 meter running. We've seen a very competitive, fast winning Hassan winning that women's B race in 15:21. The wave lights in this, the fastest wave lights, the green lights are going to be set at 13:20. We're looking at the rouge, the red lights at 13:30, and then 13:40, the white lights. So that's really fast running, Tim, isn't it? When we're looking at 13:20 up front in this B race. That they're going to be operating. I think they're looking at around about 2:41, aren't they? Just outside that time.
No, that's exactly right. 2:41 per kilometre to 3K, and then maybe wind it up a little bit. Might see them even get under 13:20 in this one. This is the B5000. Let's have a look at one or two of these fellas lining up. 138 there. That is Mohamed Reza Abutarabi of Sweden, the 33-year-old, formerly of Iran, holds many Iranian records still. He's a 13:30 performer. He'll be hoping to get in amongst the front end of this and perhaps produce a personal best. And I rather think he'll have to. You know, James, we were talking about the flags and how windy it looked earlier on, but didn't seem to affect the ladies, the women in that B 5,000 metres where there were so many personal bests.
No, there was, and I think the weather is getting better almost minute by minute. You see 1:53 in the middle is the meeting record holder. That's Ellis Cross. I think this meeting record is around about 13 minutes and 20 odd seconds, Tim, away from being smashed to oblivion. But it'll be fascinating to see whether Ellis can be one of those athletes that can challenge it. I remember seeing him on the streets of London last year, getting a lot of kudos for beating Sir Mo Farah over 10k on the road. But if he's going to turn this field over, he's going to have to run a lifetime best by a number of seconds.
Yeah, Cross's best only 13:46. 164 there. That is Francois Barret from the Reims Club. 13:27 performer. Pretty useful in that blue top, that blue vest. 147 to the right of picture. Mehdi Frère from the Fontainebleau Club. Very strong, great on the roads. He's run a 2:08 marathon. That was in Valencia a couple of years back. And then last year in Valencia ran his half marathon personal best as well, just outside 60 minutes. He will be, I would have thought, one of those who might want to push it along if he's got good speed in his legs by his standards. They're actually starting and being invited from that back line up to the front line, being introduced to the crowd. Barret there, Francois Barret.
As you said, Tim, it's a real...
Sorry, go on, James.
I said it's a real mix of international runners here, isn't it? So we've got lots of nationalities involved. I think that's, again, the fact that runners are looking to get on this fast train. We're looking at just over that 64 seconds per lap. But an interesting hat on the outside. So whether that's a go faster hat, looks like it's almost got a little propeller blade on top of it.
A new technology, don't get me started. It is too. Oh dear. 2:06. That is Victor Boudin from the Artois Athlétisme Club. He's a 14:22 performer, so I think he's out there as much for the fun as with any chance of being really competitive against men who have run, about a minute quicker. 1:53. That is Ellis Cross that you mentioned earlier, the meeting record holder. And the pacer, well, that's meant to be Abderrahman Anou, who is a 3:35 1,500 metre runner, albeit a few years ago. He's meant to be 32 years old. I'm not sure that gentleman looked 32. If that is him at 32, then lucky him. But it may be that we've got a...
It looks like a change team. It looks like John Howarth maybe has been moved from the A race. I know that because I used to coach John for a number of years. So he was originally down to be pacing the A race. There he's on the very outside in the black singlet. So I think he's been moved in to pace this B race. John was the British under-23 1500 metre champion last year. He's a sub-340 guy, over 1,500 metres and a sub-4-minute miler. He's on his way back from injury, so this is a perfect workout. Now being looked after by Luke Gunn because he lives in Birmingham. So this will be great to see John. He's a very, very competent runner. So I think he'll be entrusted leading them in the first at least 5 laps of this B race, Tim.
Well, thank goodness you recognise John Howarth. My apologies. I'm not familiar with John, but this race about to get underway, more or less under starters' orders by middle distance standards. 12.5 laps of the track. And the wind maybe has dropped a little bit. I can't see much indication of it out there on the back straight. Are they being called to their marks or not? Away they go then for this B 5,000 metres from the Fast 5,000 metre track night. And will these men grasp the nettle, grasp the opportunity to run fast here as well, half as well as the women in the B 5,000? They did a fantastic job. I tell you what, Sir James, John Howarth's a big lad, isn't he?
He's a very strong athlete. So, as I said, if you're running sub 340 for 1500 metres, and he's got good speed, but not a bad cross-country run as well. Bit of endurance in those legs, John, but his twin brother as well. So Rob has been out in the US, just having graduated in the States. So, when they both came to Cardiff, one was at Cardiff University, one at Cardiff Met. Trying to tell them apart was a nightmare as a coach, but luckily I coached them both. But I think by the third year, I understood who was who.
You're reminding me of my coaching the Graffins many years ago. The Graffin twins, both sort of world-class middle-distance runners and cross-country runners. They go through one lap there in about 64 seconds, pretty much 64 seconds exactly for John Howarth. He's done a great job. But you're right, they were identical twins, and of course you learn very quickly the difference between them, much quicker than anybody else. And other people would confuse them, and I'd go, well, they're totally different. How can you not recognise the difference? But you become familiar with it, I guess, a bit like their parents. Don't have too much trouble recognising one from the other. James, the wind has dropped substantially. Those flags are hanging pretty much motionless around the track, which is good to see.
It is. The conditions have improved, and I wonder whether John, his girlfriend Saskia, paced the women's B race, so whether she had a quick word about what the conditions are like. Still see the flags are blowing a bit, but they're definitely not what they were about an hour ago. And I think these athletes in this B race are just looking to settle in that 64-second rhythm pace. It wasn't that long ago that would have got you to a World Championships. Now we're looking at another couple of seconds per lap inside that. It is a time that will get you to Budapest this year. But John, you can see there, we're looking at around about the 2:08, 2:09 mark as he goes through that camera shot, Tim. He's right on pace.
Yeah, doing a wonderful job. 1:45 is up there, Ramdan Ouaghi of Algeria, the 30-year-old. He's a 13:38 performer. But that was in Algiers, just in middle of March. So with his speed of 3:47, 1500-metre runner, he might be hoping for an improvement of sorts. 1:64 there in the blue, remember. We mentioned him, Francois Barret. 1:77 moving down the outside, Terence Bizoza of Burundi. Based in Tuscany. He's a 61-minute half marathon runner. They go through there, James, what, at about 2:43, 2:42?
Well, the clock below said 2:41.1. I'm going with the official timing to give Johnson credit there, Tim. So if it is the official timing, and that was right, then he's right on pace. And the key now is it's so tough front running, and especially with John had a lot of time away from injury. So I'm hoping he built up enough aerobic base to get at least definitely to 2K, because it starts to jump on you a little bit. You definitely feel more of the breeze than the athletes that are tucked in behind. But you can see they're almost in single file, all of them through sub 320 through that first 3 laps. So literally the whole field are on lifetime best PB shape at the moment in those opening stages, Tim.
Yeah, on the shoulder of the leader is a 1:36 Maxime Chaumeton, the 22-year-old who's a 13:22 performer. There he is in that greyish vest. He's in wonderful form. He produced a personal best at 5,000 just last Sunday. That was in Lucca in Italy, beautiful city of Lucca, just 6 days ago, and then a personal best 3,000 back on the 27th of May. He ran 7:44 in Grosseto, so he is in superb form. I would have said Chaumeton, on the shoulder of the pacemaker John Howarth, is capable of pushing on here and producing a personal best. And that group of, 5 behind Howarth, behind the pacemaker, just beginning to get away. Howarth moving wide now.
Yeah, he's moving wide, isn't he, through the mile mark. And, that just shows you how tough it is to maintain this pace. Unless he's doubling up and coming back and doing a bit of job in the A race, which he was originally scheduled to do. Often pacers get moved around, and they, to the meet organisers' discretion to basically make sure whatever race they needed to pace. So I don't know whether that's the end of John Howarth's night. But again, they're on pace through that first 4 laps, but there is a lot of running. There's 8.5 laps of running, and now it's about who in that group behind is going to be the person to start pacing the race, or whether they're going to start swapping the lead, Tim. That's something now that the athletes themselves almost need to negotiate and work out, as you said at the beginning, who's off strength, who's off speed, who's feeling good. There's a lot of running to go in this 5,000 metre B race.
Well, I sense the clock will tell us. They went through 4 laps in 4:15, give or take a second or so. They're coming up to 5 laps now. But I think Maxime Chaumeton has accelerated here. He's the South African national champion from the 1st of April in Potchefstroom. He ran 13:46 there at altitude And they go through now. It's about another 64-second lap, I think. So 13:20 tempo. But if he does hit that, then it would be a personal best for Chomaton. He's going well, and he's stretched the field out. There's everybody now pretty much redlining, and that's tough. That's the way they've got to handle it now for the next 7 laps and more.
Yeah, Chomaton looks good. Pottersthum is at altitude, and obviously having run 13:22 at the age of 22, so he looks really good, really strong. But you know, that second kilometre was a slight increase. I think we got it at 2:39, which took them exactly to 5:20 through 2 kilometres.
Well,
it looks like Tim looks like big gaps.
Yeah, big gaps appearing, but actually some determined runners hanging onto the coattails of Chomaton, who seems quite happy to have taken it on, and that's good, James. You want that. This middle section of a 5,000 is always the one where the pace can drop. When the pacemaker drops out, you've got about 4 laps in the middle where it's not exactly no man's land, but it's a period of the race where it's very easy for everybody to go, well, I'm not taking it on. I'm not taking it on. And you start looking around at each other, and then all of a sudden you start losing seconds, and the chances of a quick time go away. So all credit to Chomaton for taking on that burden mid-race and pushing on really strongly. And he's dragging other runners here, surely, to personal bests.
Yeah, it makes it really hard in some of the other groups as well. They've missed the break. This is a strong lead group of around about 6 athletes, but you can see there's gaps back now. And these athletes, I think that's Francois Barrier. So he's a 13:27 man, Tim, and at the moment he's in no man's land, which, you know, when you've still got a lot of laps to run, that's going to be a hard way of running, unless he can bridge that gap. But if they're operating at 64, 65 seconds, means he has to start operating at 63 seconds, which is way inside personal best time for him. So at the moment, looks like this group, they look like they're alternating the lead now, which again, the next split we get in 200 metres is the 3,000 metre mark. Anything around that 8 minutes means that we've maintained pace. So it'd be interesting to see what the overall kilometre split and that 3K split is.
Well, right up there near the front is another late entry, not on my card, 468. It's Mouma Bou Goele of Djibouti, and I don't even have a time for him. So a few athletes, and he's taken it up now at the front end. 138, that's Abu Torabi, the former Iranian I told you about, now runs for Sweden. He's the 2:17 performer from the Dubai Marathon. They go through there, James, with what, about 8:03 on the clock. 2:41 at that kilometre, 2:41.9. So they are pretty much spot on schedule for 13:25, but beginning to see gaps appear now.
Yeah, that looked a tougher kilometre. They're definitely changing pace, changing at the front. They've got to keep that 64, 65 seconds going per lap. Otherwise, if it starts to drop too much, then there's definitely a split now. There's the pair, the duo, starting to pull away. But this group of 4, there's still some strong runners in there. That whether they can close that gap. But yeah, it looks like no one from beyond that top 6 is going to challenge for the lead now.
Well, I'm just checking Goele's stats, and he's a 14:09 performer. He's moving at about 13:25 pace. He's run 28:59 for 10,000. He's a 62-minute half marathon runner. That's why he's pushing it hard, because he wants to use his strength. But he's on schedule here, as we see 195 now move to the front. That's Mouyadin, also of Djibouti. He's a 13:31 performer. He's beginning to show signs that he's going to produce a personal best here today by, I don't know, something like 45 seconds. He's a 14:09 performer. The man in the black vest in second place, looking absolutely supreme. So Djiboutians in 1 and 2. And that gap, James, is growing with every stride. It's about 40 metres.
And it is, and it's been a good night for them already, having won the women's B race as well. So yeah, it's looking like Djibouti is the location of distance runners right now. But that gap is growing. You're absolutely right. Almost every 200 metres, it seems to be going out a couple of metres. And yeah, at the moment we are heading towards that 13:20 clock in. And the fact that these two, I wonder whether they know each other. Obviously, the same nationality, slightly different kind of ends of the spectrum. Obviously, yeah, Edwin's more of a kind of half marathon athlete, bit of strength. So it's going to be interesting to see whether they can keep alternating the lap. Because at the moment, that group of 4, whether someone can still bridge that gap, there's still enough track to do that. But at the moment, these two are maintaining those 64-second laps.
Well, aren't they just? A 66, mind you, that one. That's probably the slowest lap they've run so far. Guele at the front again. They're swapping the lead. It's almost like they've got an arrangement. They're taking turns. He's 32 years old, though, this Guele fella, and he's giving a wonderful account of himself into the back straight. When they get to the far end of this back straight now, the top of the straight, it will be 4 kilometres. What will the split be? We were looking for 10:44 to be on 13:25 pace. And it's not far outside that.
Yeah, you can see there 10:47. For that 4 kilometre split, 2:44. It's the slowest kilometre of the race, even though they're going away from the group behind. I think the pace, the early pace, is maybe just starting to pay now. We're going to need them to pick the pace up. You can see the encouragement of some of the runners, the crowd on the side. We're still looking at quality running this B race. When we look at the meet record, Ellis Cross is somewhere around about 150 metres behind, running probably not far off his 13:46 meet record pace from 12 months ago, and he's not even on the same page right now.
66 seconds, that penultimate lap, or that lap with 800 to go, excuse me. So they have slowed. The wind, just a little bit of breeze. Those flags, not really a problem. The early leader, Shomator, who took it on through the middle of the race. I say early leader. The man who took it on when Howard had dropped his side, leading the chasing pack and now accelerating, James. They're right of picture. And although he's about 40 metres down, I think he's left it too late. He is finishing like an absolute rocket. 600 to run.
Yeah, looking at his watch, and obviously he was one of the aggressors in the early stages. Maybe just took a breather, almost like a training session where just sat at the back for a couple of reps. And now, when you start to see that the kind of last 500 meters of a 5K, if you've got anything left, you can start turning the gears. He's got a duo to chase down, but I think as you can see them going through the on marquee, that gap is significant, Tim.
Yeah, it is significant. They're not going to get back to them, but these two are going to have a real dust up now as they go through the bell. And the time on the clock, they're about 12:26 as they went through the bell, so they could yet get under 13:25, the original target time for this B 5,000 metres. The fast 5,000 metre B men's 5,000 is turning into a real humdinger. Left to picture the two Djiboutians, that pairing, 468, Guele, the taller of the two, in black, leads at the moment. Certainly his compatriot, Muyadeen, at the bell, looked very tired, but he's rallying now, wearing 195 on the shoulder of his compatriot. 200 metres to run. The charge going on from behind. 147, that's Mehdi Frère of the Fontainebleau Club. He's heading for a big personal best. Surely his 13:38 from 2 years ago is about to be revised. But as they come round into the straight, it's a little dust up here between the two Djiboutians. I don't think there's any conversation between this pair as they gave 100%, driving towards the line. And 195, Muyadeen is going to take it. Crosses the line there, unofficially in 13:26. 2:38 that final kilometre, so much quicker than the third and fourth kilometres. Remember, the fourth kilometre was at 2:44. They blasted through that final lap, and 13:26 or thereabouts is pretty much on the money. Great racing, and I think there'll be a lot of personal bests behind them.
Yeah, you see Wheeler crossing the line, Ellis Cross, another athlete, and he saw his meet record absolutely obliterated there by 21 seconds, and he was very, very close to his own time. And Jamal Mohammed, one of the refugee team for the on-running team as well, so getting great support. Good battling behind these athletes. Going down, it looks like Anthony Bamal, who it's about a 30:47 PB. He's going to be outside that, but look at that. Djibouti 1-2. A meet record, another MR Tim against the screen. A PB in second, and for operating all best as well. And there you go. Nice to see Ellis Cross, a lifetime best set 12 months ago here, and he's done it again in 7th place this time. Not the winner, but there's the winner on the screen in a new meeting record. There it is, confirmed on the screen there, 13:25.84. Quality bit of running, Tim, that was.
Well, his full name is Abdi Weiss Muyadeen. That's what I was calling him during the race, or the caption that he came up with, Abdi Weiss. But 13:25.84, right on the money. Guele taking second place. That's Mumin Bu Guele and Butarabi of Sweden taking third place, 13:33. Guele, by the way, 13:27 for second place. His personal best that I've been able to research during the race, 14:09. So he's run a personal best by over 40 seconds. I mean, it's absolutely astonishing. Where's he been? And he's 32 years old.
Well, hashtag FAST5000. It's on the doors as you come into the meet. It's on the social media. It's everywhere. That's exactly why people are coming here. That's exactly what the kind of on-track nights is about. It's about fast running. And again, this is just the B race. There you go. The top 9 are on there, and obviously highlighted at the bottom, FAST5000. And it really does kind of showcase that. 13:47. You can see George Weeder at the bottom of the page there. We almost had 8 athletes inside the old record, and that really does bear well now when we go into the A races, men and women.
First 4 getting personal bests in that men's B5000. It's some mouth-watering stuff from the 2 races so far. The women's B5000, the men's B5000. There's so much more to come. Don't forget, we've got the men's B1500 next, the men's A1500. That'll be world class. The women's mile after that, and then the A races for women and men respectively over 5,000 metres. It is an absolute feast of great racing.
Yeah, do hang around. That B race goes off for 1,500 metres in about 3 minutes. The A race, I'm very looking forward to seeing Jimmy Gressier going over a much shorter distance, but he ran very well a few weeks ago at 3:34. So we're looking to back that up again. Here have a very vocal and supportive local French crowd as well. So again, we're looking to get inside those World Championship qualifying times. 1,500 metres, that's 3:34.2. And there's a very strong 14-man field coming. And also we've got the fun of the mile, Tim, haven't we? Women have the mile distance, 4 laps and an extra 9 metres. That's going to be super fun coming up later.
No, exactly right. And it's funny, isn't it? The mile is, as we see the latter stages of that 5,000 with the 2 Djiboutians battling it out and then the chase going on behind. The mile is so seldom run in continental Europe generally. Many of the women's field in that mile have never run a mile before, and yet the American runner Nikki Hills, who's in the field, has run it many, many times, dozens of times. That's that impressive win there for Abdi Weiss Muyadin, 13:25.84.
The team was very, very impressive, and love watching those highlights back. It really does show how the race, was unfolding. John Howarth in those early stages, and then the pace was picked up. It changed hands multiple times, but yeah, Djibouti won 2. So at the moment, there's been an A and a B race, and they've occupied the 2 top spots. Can they keep that record going as more of the circus acts just entertain the fans in between the races? But that men's B race, I think we're set to go in a couple of minutes. So, Tim, we've got a strong field, haven't we, in this B race, with some athletes that were very, very borderline again between those A and B races.
No, that's exactly right, James. That's exactly right, yeah. And, there will be, as ever, in all meetings where there's A and B races or even C and D races, you get occasionally a mismatch or an athlete who proves that they were in the wrong race at the start, would perhaps feel they should be in the next race up. But there are guys in this B1500 coming up who've run 3:36, 3:37. Plenty of them have broken 3:40. The target time is 3:37. That's, if you like to put it in terms of a mile, is worth about 3:55, maybe 3:54 and a half, something like that. There's always debate about how the conversion should work, but it's about 17 seconds, something like that.
Yeah, around about 58 seconds per lap, Tim. So it's going to be some quality running in that race. As you can see, our youngsters, Mbappe top one. He's got the speed and the strength. So again, get these youngsters involved and integrated into a track meet, Tim. I know that's something On Running really want to showcase running and make it fun. These are the next generation. So if they come to a meet like this, they remember it, and these could be the stars of the future, couldn't they?
Well, absolutely. Who knows? Who knows what we're looking at in terms of those youngsters? I know what we're looking at the moment. Some pretty amazing display. Oh, my word. I'm not going to argue with her. Whatever she says, she's right. Of course, you know what I love about track and field too, James? It is the kind of the great teaching ground for all motor skills, running, jumping and throwing. We're all born with the ability to run. Not all necessarily born with the ability to ride a bike or to swim or to do any of those other endurance sports. But running comes natural to all of us. And then when you layer on a little bit of coaching for throwing and jumping, and you find an awful lot of footballers, funnily enough, you mentioned Mbappe just now, an awful lot of footballers who were good runners as kids. George Mills, the top British middle distance runner, his father Danny Mills was an England footballer, wasn't he? A defender. Well, he wasn't called Chopper Mills, was he? But he was a bit of a hard man, I think, Danny.
No, Danny was a very, very good footballer as well. So George, who we expect to see in the 5,000 metres earlier, having run a World Championship qualifying time over 1,500. Originally down for the 1,500, he has moved. I mean, there's such strong on groups when you start looking down at the on Europe team, obviously the new on Oceania team that's coached by the superb Craig Mottram. What an absolute beast in multiple distances, Craig. But also then you've got the US team led by Nathan Rittenheim with that super strong middle to long distance pack of men and women, from Helen O'Beary to Jose Andrews to Yaron the Goose. You got Ollie Hoare. Got Alicia Monson, who ran last night. That squad alone, I think Geordie Beanish goes in the men's 5,000 later today, is so strong. And then you've got a whole load of athletes that are individual on athletes and different teams as well. So exciting. I just think they are really supporting athletes of all distances, and they are ripping it up at the moment. And we've got a few special on athletes coming up later today, and also some of them pacing as well, Tim.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know many people feel that 800 metres and 1,500 metres are the perfect events in terms of concentration span, the way that tactics can unfold in a limited amount of time. The sprints are special, of course they are. Everybody wants to be the fastest man in the world, the 100-metre champion in the Olympics, or the 200-metre, the long sprint. Or the 400 metres has a wonderful symmetry to it, doesn't it? Just one lap of the track. But the 800 and 1,500 metres, especially 800, it's where you can go so fast and be swapping and moving around for position. I like that blend of speed and tactics. Let's have a look at the field, though, in this men's 1,500B race. Kieselberger, well, here's the pacemaker, Conrad Kieselberger. Callum Elson goes in this one, the 24-year-old Cambridge and Coleridge athlete. He's a 3:40 performer. That was in London last year. Look out for Ben Buckingham as well. Buckingham, better known as a steeplechaser, actually won the Australian Steeplechase Championships back on the 31st of March. Very much a steeplechase specialist. I think he is due an improvement in his steeplechase, in his 1,500 best. He's run 3:39, but that was a couple of years ago. We'll identify the athletes for you more as we get to see them on the start line. Of course, it's 3 3/4 laps. The 1,500 metres. The target time is 3:37. There are 11 starters. It's quite a small, high-caliber field. 4 of the field have broken 3:40, and when you get under 3:40 for 1,500 metres, it's sort of a psychological barrier. It's almost like the modern-day sub-4-minute mile, I suppose, even though 3:40 is worth about 3:57 for a mile there or thereabouts.
Yeah,
James, can you remember your first sub-4-minute mile?
I can. It was in San Francisco, and it was at 10 o'clock in the morning back in 2002. So, it was the hardest thing I've ever done that early, but it was nice enjoying the rest of the day. And actually, it was Andrew Graffin was in the same race, so you were coaching at the same time, Tim. So I think he pipped me in the last 50 metres.
What on earth were you doing racing at 10 in the morning? I mean, this is a sensible time to race in Paris, 8:30 at night.
Well, I tell you what, they did a smart thing. There was a great road race that went on, and we had a crowd because they had a mass participation 5K race, and everyone sat and watched a mile race after. So a bit like this event where you need to think outside the box, and obviously a race in the evening, there would have been probably a few hundred people there. But yeah, having a mass participation 5-kilometre race got masses out there, and I tell you what, it was a great atmosphere. But yeah, as I said, running that hard in the morning, I think I might have run a little few seconds faster in the evening. But this pacer on the outside, Tim, he's got an important job, isn't he? If we're going to get a sub 3:40 clocking and beyond that in this race, and there's lots of athletes that have done that already, and there's a few that would love to go sub 3:40 for the first time.
Absolutely right. Kieselberger there, Konrad Kieselberger, 24-year-old German. He's run a couple of 150 800s in the last 10 days, so he's well capable of taking them out here. I think in around 155, something like that. 4:23. That is Teo Rajour. Recently only ran a 3:49, but he does have good speed. He's a 1:47 800-meter runner, 4:17. That's Yasin Bui of Italy. He's a 3:37 performer. Ran 3:42 in Grosseto 10 days or so ago in Italy. 4:27, Callum Elson. 6th in the World Cross Country in Bathurst in the mixed relay for Great Britain back on the 18th of February. And the British squad that went down there, and many Europeans, of course, would have taken the opportunity to get some warm weather training in for 2 or 3 weeks. Well, the spectators are going to be treated to an absolute barnstormer of the next hour and a half or so, with these 5,000 meter races and 1,500s and that women's mile, high caliber women's mile coming up, still coming at us.
Yeah, no, as you said, Tim, and welcome if you are joining us. This is the on-track nights. This is the FAST 5000 from Paris. It's been a busy 24 hours of athletics in the French capital. And as Tim says, we've got a super exciting next hour plus of racing. We've got 2 high-quality men's 1,500s, a women's mile, and both A races in the men's and women's 5,000. Over to you, Tim, for the start of this B race men's 1,500.
Away they go then. There will be little quarter given here. If they go with the pacemaker, Kieselberger, then it will be quick, and it looks quick over the first 100. Kieselberg there in the white vest. 4:67 moving across from the outside. And as they head around the first bend. So Kieselberger has got himself out in front, and they're already stretched out almost into single file. Well, how will they go through here? They need to come through 300 meters in about 43 seconds. Usually the first lap is a little bit quicker in these middle distance races because they have to set it up. But Kieselberger there goes through, yeah, in about 43 seconds. Good work so far.
Yeah, those pace lights are set at 2:26. So, yeah, we are looking at around about that kind of 1:55 through the 800 meter mark. So anything 56, 57. I think that was around about 57 low on my watch there. So even pace running, you can see it's a quick pace. The fact that it is spread out, I think you can see a little gap back. Callum Nelson, he's a runner that would love to go sub 340. Very busy on social media. Lots of pushing in their race already, Tim, isn't there?
I was just going to say, James, loads of pushing there as they went around that bend. Goodness me, what a shame. I mean, crikey, that was really aggressive work going on there. And there was a runner in there who I don't have his number on my list. 467 is not on my list. And he was one of those doing the pushing and shoving. 460 as well is a new number. There's a lot of changes to this field as they head down through with 2 laps to go. And that's about 141 as they went through there. James, it's going to be quick. He's doing a good job, the pacemaker.
Pacemaker is doing a good job. I think we're looking around about that 1:56 mark. You can see the timing being called out on that far side. There you go, exactly on the nose. 1:56.01, 58 seconds for that second lap. Now the pacer, if he's going to get to 1,000 meters, has to really work. The lactic will be filling the legs. You can see the grimace, but again, he's doing a great job keeping it on his pace up front. The longer he can stay in there, the more kind of benefit the runners are getting. It's Kasai, I think he's the Ethiopian 19-year-old, 3:36.9 lifetime best, is the athlete that is probably the aggressor now, Tim. That's the important part. Who's now going to be really positive on this third lap?
Well, it is Adriana Kasai, just 19 years old. He ran 3:36 when he was 17. He comes towards the bell. It's going to be quick. There's no doubt about it. Goes through the bell there in 2:40.5, 2:41, there or thereabouts. The pack is still there, though. A lot of these fellas are going to run quick times, if not personal bests. But it's anybody's race, because that is a pack of, what, some 9 athletes, 10 athletes still there as he reaches 1,200 metres.
Yeah, 59.8 for that lap, so it has slowed 2:56. So they need a 43-second last 300. That is more than doable with the quality, as you said. It is safety in numbers, but I tell you what, there is a lot of running to be done in this last 200 metres. See who comes out on top, Tim.
4.66, Adriana Kasaye, just 19 years old, has a silver medal from the World Cross Country Mixed Relay in Australia back in the middle of February. Into the last 200 metres now, and this is an absolute burn-up over the last 200 metres. 4.24, Thomas Picard coming down the outside. Look at him in the blue, he's powerful. And is he going to get there? On his outside, another athlete coming through. Picard, is he going to get there? I don't know if he did. We didn't get the front-on shot there to identify the athlete who maybe up-dipped Picard. He's a 3:42 performer, and I think he's just run a big personal best. They seem to want to give it to him. Very solid recent form, Picard. 150.02 in Poitiers. Just last week, that was last Sunday. It's only his second outdoor 1500 of the year here, and I'm very modest. 3:52, 3:39.04, and they've actually given it to Bouy and not Picard. So Bouy taking it, 4:17, Yassine Bouy, who is a 3:37 performer. Now Picard to the left of picture there in the blue, all the pushing and shoving, and this is where they're 5 abreast. There almost wasn't room for them. For a 1500, maybe they did need a little bit more room. But 4:17 to the left there, Yassine Bouy, the 26-year-old Italian, coming through to steal that one. He's actually an interesting athlete, an 8:29 steeplechaser. Won the European cross-country mixed relay in Turin back in the middle of December for the Italian squad. But Picard just out-dipped, James.
Yeah, I think the local production team wanted to give it to him. He was definitely dipping on the line. It was super close. It must have only been a hundredth of a second, but I tell you what, he won't be too disappointed. That's a 3.5 second lifetime best. When you make a jump, he's made a jump now from 3:42.8 to the low 3:39s. That buys him a whole new different ball game in terms of his next race. He's going to get into races that he couldn't have got into previous to this race. So that just shows you it's not just fast 5,000s tonight, fast 1500s as well, Tim.
Absolutely right. Always a little frustrating, I suppose, when you've had a pacemaker do a good job and then that penultimate lap dropped to a 59.8. You can see there, Kieselberger did a wonderful job to set it up. A lot of pushing and shoving in the early stages, despite the pace being pretty healthy. And then that 59.8, once he dropped out, then it slowed dramatically and they lost a couple of seconds there. What would have been a 3:36 or 3:37 race, as they hit the bell after a slow lap, became a 3:39 race. Nothing wrong with that. I love great racing. Great racing is a sustainable quality. Chasing fast times can so often end in disappointment. But, wow, I tell you what, James, I thought Kasaye looked absolutely fantastic there with 200 to run. I thought he might get it, but it became a lottery, didn't it, with that sort of burn up through a whole pack in the last 200.
Yeah, when you look at that home straight shot, you can see the dodging and diving that runners had to do, and almost just what line have you got to choose? People's legs are going, and then fast finishing on the outside, and you can see a great shot there, breaking the on tape. And yeah, it's going to be. I think the photo finish team is still working on it, Tim, to get the official results, and I can't wait to see how many guys went sub 3:40 in that race. There's going to be a whole host of lifetime bests.
I think that winning time come up as 3:39.04 a couple of minutes ago when the race finished. And if that's the case, then you're right. I mean, probably about 6 or 8 fellas there have gone under 3:40, quite a few of them for the first time.
Not a PB,
what a quick track this is.
It does, not a PB obviously for Yassine Bouy, but I tell you what, it shows the Italians coming into shape now. So he's obviously only 3:42 early this year, so he's knocked another 3 seconds off that. So he's definitely getting faster race by race. Probably wasn't quite ready enough to be in that A race, but yeah, definitely justifies being in a faster heat in his X race. And look, that infield, it's so busy and great to see so much going on. The crowds have been absolutely superb through today. And I tell you what, there you go on the screen now, those results, Tim, of that B race.
Yassine Bouy, the winner, then the Italian, 3:39.04. Picard, 2 100s behind. And Gadisa coming through to take a third place, the Ethiopian, 3:39.36. Callum Elson, fourth place, a personal best for him, 3:39.40. That is great. That's almost a full second off his personal best for Elson, and first time ever under 3:40. Kasaye, well, he has run significantly quicker than that. The Ethiopian, he had to settle for 5th place there, who was perhaps my pre-race favourite, really, when you look at just how talented he is. But I never liked races that were that when you get 6 or 8 guys coming off the final bend together, it is such a... you might as well say, well, I'll tell you what, let's all have a 200-metre race. You know what I mean? If you don't get to the bell feeling pretty tired and stretched, and everybody comes to 200 to go feeling pretty fresh and up for it, who knows? It's anybody's race.
Yeah, it did make it very interesting. Obviously, there were that many in the pack, and obviously, you know, the way to seed in so many runners of similar abilities. Yeah, it reminded me almost of a qualification race, like a semi-final at World Champs, where there's nothing to choose between the runners, and obviously that ducking and diving in that home straight, anything can happen. But yeah, great to see those athletes rewarded with personal bests, some really good hit outs, lots of season's best. And as I said, that, you know, as a 1500 metre runner, probably takes you, you know, 3-4 really good 1500 metre races to find that sweet spot. And yeah, those runners, being the fact that it's still very early and in June, you know, we're looking into the Julys and August to run really fast. And talk about running really fast, some of the runners in this A race have done that already. You can see on the screen now, Soma Meslek, he's already run 3:34.7. So the Italian, he's based in Leeds, coached by Matt Yates as well. So he's looking to get that World Championship qualifying time, 3:34.2. So he needs to find another half a second. So again, pacemakers so important in this race. It's Julian Rack is the pacemaker in this race, and he's someone that we were talking about off air, Tim. He's quality, 147 for 800. He's a 3:37 this year, 1500 metre man. That's so important to have quality of him as the pacer.
No, absolutely right. The athletes have to have confidence in the pacemaker, and the meeting organisers need to know the pacemakers will do a good job. And it's always frustrated me, and you have to bite your lip as a commentator when you see youngsters introduced as a pacemaker in major meetings, major races, and they just are not up to the task. It's very, very disappointing.
So look at the field on the lineup there on the screen. It is quality. You've got a Bill in there. You've got Luke McCann, the talented Irish athlete. And you've got Jimmy Gressier there, who's already got a World Championship 1500 metre qualifying mark. But I don't think he'll use that. I think we end up seeing him over 5,000 metres later on in the summer in Budapest. The Norris, the talented Norwegian athlete, he again will be looking into home of distance running right now. You know, Jakob running 2 sub-4-minute miles back-to-back last night, Ingebrigtsen. So, yeah, Norwegian distance running is very, very strong. But so it's Britain's distance running. Obviously, Jake Whiteman, world champion. Tonight, we're looking for the likes of Elliot Giles, who's gone sub-144 indoors for 800 metres. Also a former European medalist over that distance, and also 3:33 over 1500. So fascinating to see the speed athletes. There's some coming from endurance, but obviously we've got some out-and-out 1500 metre runners in there as well, and a really strong French contingent. There's lots of French athletes, as we've just seen in the last heat, that are looking to put their personal best to a few seconds faster. As we go down the field there, see Moret, you've got Benoit Campion in there as well, and I think it's the pacer, as McCann just asked the camera to get out of the way as we're off. This is the men's 1500 metre A race. We're looking at 2:22 through 1 kilometre. That is going to be around about 56, 57 per lap, around about 154 through 800 metres. So, and the pacer, Julien Rank, has got a really important job, and maybe a fall on that start line, Tim. An athlete looks like already around about 10, 15 metres behind.
Yeah, that's Noah Baltus of the Netherlands. He's a 3:37 performer. That is quite possibly his race done and dusted. That's really frustrating. The pacemaker, Ronk, will take them long here behind, and then Abele will take over. This is the sort of race, James, you were talking about Elliot Giles. This is the sort of race that Giles ought to be thinking he should win. Not at a canter, because Gressier was in fabulous form. We know that, 3:34 just 10 days ago. But Elliot Giles can use that big kick of his here, just needs to shadow anybody else here who threatens, and then use that 143, 144, 800 metre speed.
Yeah, Elliot's already run 145 this year, so he's got a decent 800 in his legs. He also opened up. He ran in Henglo over 1500, just got pipped by Cosgrove, the Irish athlete, running 3:38. Wasn't great conditions that day. So I think Elliot will have used that as a bit of a lung buster. John Bigg, his coach down at Brighton, always gets Elliot in great shape. He doesn't do a huge amount of running off the track. Does a lot of cross training, uses like an elliptigo bike to keep the fitness. But again, he is super, super strong. But I'm excited. Jimmy Gressier, the amount of different celebrations this guy does, whether it's grabbing a croissant or a pastry as he comes down the cross-country championships, whether it's diving over the line of the European cross-country championships, you never know, Tim, what you're getting, but you do know you're getting a bit of spice and a bit of personality with Jimmy.
Well, they're coming up to 800 metres now. Has the pacemaker done a good job? Yes, he has. 1:53.58. That is superb. James, you will know that full well as a great miler yourself. Now they can start racing and pushing hard.
We are on. This is getting towards World Championship qualifying pace. So we were looking at 2:22 through that first kilometre, and 1:53 is right on the money then. If they can run a 28-second 200 metres here, but it is about that third lap. The fact they got two paces in this men's 1500 metre A race, that is vital, because once the pacer drops at 8, unless there's another pacer willing to really sacrifice themselves on this third lap, and you can see that. And it is Jimmy Gressier. He's already run 3:34 this year, following the pacer, and it's a real battle on behind. Norris is the Norwegian athlete in there. You see McCann is probably at the back of that group as well. Meslek in the blue. But it is at the moment Giles, who's looking very, very strong, currently in third place. They're coming to the 300 metres to go, Tim.
2:49 at 1200. Gressier knows full well the danger of Giles. He knows Giles has got a big kick. He's been pushing really hard since the bell, James. He's driven hard down the back straight to try and take this thing out of Giles. And the Briton back in fourth place is looking stretched.
Nordas is the Norwegian athlete that's pushed on. He's got a 3:34.7 lifetime best. He would love to also get that World Championship qualifying time of 3:34.2. He's into the home straight. Looks like it's Charles-Philippe Tebelt who's got to close down the Canadian, but I think it's going to be the Norwegian athlete. They are so strong as a nation right now. It's going to be a massive lifetime best. It's just outside a world lead, Tim. 3:32.4. There are some huge times behind. Oh, Norve Giles Nordas there, the 24-year-old Norwegian, stopping the clock at 3:32, Tim. I didn't think we were going to see a time as quick as that. That's a massive lifetime best, and I tell you what, behind him, Charles-Philippe Tebelt has beaten his personal best set in Monaco from 2015. So pre-super shoes, the shoes they're wearing, and a personal best 3:33.9 for Jimmy Gressier as well. We had three athletes sub 3:34. That's a huge race, Tim.
It's massive, isn't it? Shows how good conditions are. Nordas is quite an awkward mover. I mean, he's not exactly, I don't know, poetry in motion, is he? Head rocking from side to side. A lot of elbows going on, but boy, has he got a big stride, and he's powerful, and he covers the ground well enough and punches the air, James. And he looked to me like he's got more in the tank. 3:32.39 to win by over a second. He just blew them away in that last 150.
He did. And I tell you what, that also tells people that this isn't just a fast 5,000 meet. People are going to be coming here next year to run a fast 1,500 when you've got a 3:32.3 winning time. But also, can't wait to see the times behind as well, because there are a whole host here. We had 3 on the screen running World Championship qualifying times, but there's going to be a whole host behind. And look at that, some celebrations behind. I think that, and again, the atmosphere and the kind of enjoyment here at the meet. Wow, I don't think anyone expected 3:32. The quality of field we had, yes, maybe, but to actually deliver it is absolutely phenomenal.
3:33.90 for Jimmy Gressier is a personal best. Some consolation there. And Charles Philibert Thibauteau of Canada, a big personal best for him as well. Under 3:34 for the first time in second place. That was superb. And, you know, to be fair to the pacemaker, it was set up by the pacemakers. They did a wonderful job getting it absolutely spot on, as you called it, James. 1:53.5 at 800. And then some aggression through that third lap. And that is what set it up so well.
It did. They're 2:49 through 1,200 metres, and I think the organisers got it absolutely spot on here. The fact they had 2 paces, one in control of that first 800, and then the next it was about the middle lap, that third lap. Everyone knows it in middle distance, that that's where the pace can drop. We saw it in the B race, that's where we lost a little bit of time, but in the A race, it was maintained. And I tell you what, there was also then a very, very strong finish. Nordas there, as you said, he's a strong, powerful runner, and he almost made that last 200 meter look so easy. And look at the times on the screen there. Personal best, season's best. Mornet, the French athlete, has also just missed the World Championship qualifying time, 3:34.2. Elliot Giles, that's a big season's best, 3:34.6. A lifetime best there for Luke McCann, the Irish athlete, 3:34.76. That's a really, really big run there. And again, we had 8 athletes, 3:35 and below. Mazet there in 8th place. That is fantastic. And I think the French will be happy. 3 athletes in the top 8 as well, Tim.
Yeah, the times are quick, aren't they? I don't think Elliot Giles has run quicker than that many times. I mean, I know his personal best is 3:33.56, so his consolation for finishing in 5th place is another really, really strong time. And that was a bonus, I suppose you could say, James, that really quick time. In fact, that is Giles' 3rd quickest time ever.
Yeah, no, I think he'd be delighted, and you can see an interview with Jimmy Gressier on the screen. So I don't know what your French is like, Tim, to do a bit of translation, but I tell you what, for a 5K runner running the times he's doing over 1,500 metres, it only bodes well. I mean, he's run sub 60 minutes for half marathon not that long ago, Tim, and recently broke the European record on the road for 5,000 metres, but I think he's in sub 13-minute shape, or is definitely getting towards that kind of mark.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I think he's broken 13 minutes already, hasn't he, Jimmy Gressier? I think his personal best for 5,000 is below 13 minutes. But he is a fabulous cross-country runner, made famous, of course, 5 years ago by that slide on his knees as he won the European Under-23 cross-country. And then as he broke the tape, he collapsed on his face, didn't he, in the mud. That was a hilarious clip. It went viral, watched millions of times, but he is nonetheless, when it comes to serious racing, a really high-caliber athlete. And look at that. He took it on from the bell, James, didn't he? Pushing on really hard to try and break Nordas and Giles and the others. And even though he only finished in 3rd place, his reward is that personal best.
Yeah, he was definitely one of the aggressors there. He was the athlete that got right on the 2 paces as well. And there's a great head-on shot. The pace that the athletes are running. But I tell you, Nordas, that stride, that power in that last 100 metres, and he was just running away from a world-class field. And the fact that there's a lot of World Championship qualifying times in there, and Nordas joins, as I said, a super strong nation of 1,500-metre runners right now. I'm not sure whether 3:32 gets him an automatic slot yet in the Norwegian team for the World Championships, but I tell you what, they are going from strength to strength. And I tell you what, and I also, the fact that the Fast 5000 is Fast 1,500 metres as well, put this in your diary, 1,500-metre runners for 12 months' time. Get yourselves here. Could be some more faster times than as they were today.
Absolutely. Forgive us for talking over Jimmy Gressier there. I could have tried, but my French might not quite be up to scratch, and I don't want to, A, really struggle, and B, talk a load of old rubbish as to what he might be saying. I'm sure he's speaking an awful lot of sense, but we'll keep talking in good old English, I'm afraid. Apologies to Jimmy Gressier there, but I'm sure the crowd loved that one, and there's so much more to come. The women's mile is next. The women's mile, there's no A and B race for the women in the middle distances, just the mile, high caliber field. And then the A races for women and men, respectively, at 5,000. Crowd's loving it. And, of course, as if they weren't treated to an incredible Diamond League last night with a world best and 2 world records. I think the world of track and field athletics is still reeling, scratching its head after what took place last night at the stadium in Bercy.
Oh, absolutely, Tim. But when you put these 2 races, these 2 meets together, and you start looking at the times across both of them, it's an absolute festival. And I know lots of athletes that are racing here tonight were watching last night, obviously inspired. And there's been a few that did vice versa, that raced last night, that have come down to watch this meet and be part of this Fast 5000. I mean, as you said, we go on to Vienna next week, so it's going to be even more fast times. But I think the on nights are just going to keep building and building and building. And people know you can come here and run fast, but also have a great time. There's a great atmosphere here. And the spectators have got a treat coming up. That women's mile, I'm really looking forward to that. But also then, 2 very fast 5,000s. And the fact we've already had world qualifying times in the 1,500, I would love us to see even more athletes going inside that over the 12 and a half lap distance coming up shortly, Tim.
No, absolutely. I suppose they're putting on the women's mile because of the requests from the athletes. 1,500 metres is the more common distance, of course, the championship distance. And it's a funny one, isn't it? Because the mile is run at various races around Europe, various meetings around Europe. The Dream Mile in Oslo has been going for many, many years in the Bislett Games. Mile races in Zurich and elsewhere. And I suppose the great runners of the 50s and 60s and 70s laid the foundation for that, even though it's this distance that many continental Europeans are not familiar with. It's 4 laps and 9 metres. So it's just a second or so longer than 4 laps. As we see these ladies preparing for the race to get underway. The women, there are 14 starters. The race due off actually at 10:02, so we're running a little bit late, the meeting. It matters not. I mentioned earlier that few women outside the US and the UK have run a mile. There's quite a few debutantes in this race.
There are, Tim, I think the mile...
Sorry, James.
Yeah, the mile obviously ran a lot in the US and collegiate system. They love competing the mile. But you're right, a lot of Europeans, we're going to see a lot of season's best and personal best in the mile today, given that the fact they just haven't run the distance.
Charlotte Mouchet is the pacemaker, by the way, and she's been tasked with taking them out at 4:20 pace. So obviously around 65 seconds per lap, 64 and a half seconds per lap. Let's look at these athletes for you. 664, that is Maudie Skyring of Australia, the 26-year-old. She was a student at Florida State. She was 8th in the Australian Championships in Brisbane back in early April. Skyring has a best of 4:08. She's an 8:59 performer at 3,000. 662, Carrie Hughes of Great Britain, former Loughborough student, was based in Cardiff. Hasn't raced since her 4:15 back on the in early February. This is her first race outdoors. And there is perhaps the pre-race favourite, Nikki Hiltz of the USA, 28 years old, Hiltz. A Pan Am Games champion back in 2019, twice US champion. She's a big performer. Her personal best, 4:01, goes back 3 years to the World Championship semi-finals. And I wonder if she's thinking, maybe tonight she can break 4 minutes for the first time. She's in very, very good form. She won the US National Road Championships on the mile back on the 25th of April in Des Moines. She won in Bergen last Saturday in 4:07. She won very easily in that meeting in Norway. 664 is Skyring. Not quite sure why the camera is focusing upon her so much. There's a very high caliber field here. And the pacemaker's job, of course, so important. The world best this year, 4:22. Now, that is vulnerable. Edna Jebitok of Kenya running that in Bydgoszcz just a few days ago. World record, well, that's an astonishing 4:12 by Sifan Hassan of the Netherlands. She ran that in Monaco 3 years back. 6:57, that is Alice Finot from Bordeaux. Holds the national record for the steeplechase. 9:10 she ran last Friday at Florence in the Diamond League there. She's only a 4:09 performer at 1,500, but she's so much better than that. Surely the 32-year-old French athlete can go many seconds quicker than 4:09. Maybe tonight. We know she's in great form. 9:10 for the steeplechase a week ago tonight, or last night rather, shows that she is in supreme shape. She was 10th in the World Championships last year in the steeplechase. And James, I always think that steeplechasers, to be complete steeplechasers, need to be very competent on the flat as well.
Yeah, you need to be explosive, for those barriers, for the water jump. So having a good 1,500 metre engine is so important, especially when you're trying to operate towards 9 minutes. You have to be efficient over 1,500 metres. And I think the extra distance today sounds daft, but that extra 109 metres can hurt a little bit more than the 1,500. I think that's really going to play into her hands. You're right, 4:09. She should be looking around about the 4:05, 4:04 mark. If she does that, she's not going to be far off the kind of 4:25, 4:23 mark. The pace is set, the markers, they're looking at the green lights, the pace lights around about that 4:20 mark. So 65 seconds a lap. You're right, Tim. So if we can see a world lead, that would be great in this women's mile.
Well, the athletes lined up nicely by the officials, who have been doing a wonderful job. Just a shout out and a big thank you to all the officials, the volunteers who make meetings like this possible. The 14 starters on the line now, and we'll identify them more as they get underway. Cassie Vubrist Ashal of Ethiopia, the 18-year-old in the orange there near the centre of picture. She's a 4:03 performer, did that in Nairobi in May last year. She's the African under-20 champion from early May, over 5,000. So she is strong, Vubrist in the orange. Watch out for her. 668, third from right. That is Vera Kudelier from Cologne. The German is 27. She's a 4:09 performer. And 665 to the left there, Nikki Hiltz in the white strip. Well, Nikki Hiltz, as I said, won in Bergen last week very comfortably in 4:07. Now, that is not super quick for 1500, but she won it easily, and I think there's plenty in the tank for her. She also is the US indoor champion from earlier on this year, took the indoor title in Albuquerque back on the 18th of February. 697, the tall figure in black to the left of picture, that's Janet Chamusto. Now watch her. Chamusto, the Ugandan, is my nod and wink for this one. She won in Nairobi back in the middle of May at the Kip Keino Classic in by nearly 3 seconds. She won very easily indeed in 4:01 at altitude, and she slaughtered the field there. She's good at cross country too. She's good at 800, and they can get underway now. So, the women's mile underway then. High caliber field. If they go with the pacemaker, Charlotte Mouchet, then we are in for something perhaps around the 4:20 mark.
Yeah, the early laps are going to be so important, Tim, aren't they? Absolutely. Yeah, the wind has dropped.
And the pacemaker has gone up quickly, stretching out. And a single file for the first 4 or 5. And I think it is Chamusto of Uganda who's tucked in second place.
Yeah, it's a strong early pace. You can see single file. Looks like Carrie Hughes at the back of that. She's one of the on athletes, the on Europe athletes. There's a strong contingent of them in this race. So, yeah, great to see on athletes supporting the mile here. And, yeah, we're looking at 65 seconds. That tent is getting busier and busier. The noise in that men's 1,500 metres was almost deafening down that home straight. And now it's building even more. So let's keep an eye on the clock. Remember, they've run over 400 metres in there you go. So around about 63 seconds, 64 seconds, because they started that 9 metres before the finish and line there, Tim. But it's quality up front at the moment. So we are heading towards that time. You can see the wave light on the inside. They are right on pace to that first 500 metres.
Well, down the back straight then for the second time, and this field are stretched out its worst lap. I got it at about 64 seconds, so really good pacemaking. 4-minute pace for 1,500 metres, and therefore probably about 4:19, 4:20 for these women in this mile race. Looking superb as they negotiate this second lap. Good job being done here by Charlotte Mouchet, you have to say. She really has. And the gap's appearing, James, because the pace at the front is fast. There's no doubt about it. And certainly, Chamusto is up for the task. She's tucked in there. Hiltz moving down the outside now in that white strip. 7:04. That's Mohammed, Surah Ali Mohammed of Djibouti. She's only a 4:12 athlete. They go through there. 2:09.89 at 800. So that second lap may be a little bit slower.
Yeah, dropped slightly, but Nikki Hiltz just started to realise that there was a slight gap. She had to make a move and make a strong run on this third lap, because otherwise, if gaps develop so quickly in this mile, it's very difficult to pull runners back. But they are right on the limit here. Not many of these athletes have run the mile distance. Hiltz has run the mile. She runs a lot of road miles as well, and she's definitely closing that down. 6:67 side. So Chamusto's run very well, the Ugandan, through that first kilometre, Tim.
Chamusto there with 600 to run, just checked over her shoulder. She will have seen what she wanted to see. That is Nikki Hiltz back in by about 7 or 8 metres, maybe more, and she's beginning to cut loose. Hiltz is chasing hard, but the problem is that Hiltz, when she realised that the pace was quick up front, she'd given them 5 or 6 yards already, I think, and they come towards the bell. So Chamusto has still got that gap. Moving through into third place is 666 Vissa of Italy, NCAA champion last year at 1500. She's a caliber performer. There are gaps there in the leading half dozen, but Hiltz now is beginning to close on Chamusto. She's certainly grabbed back 2 or 3 meters in the last 200. Through 1200 there.
They're chasing down, Tim, the green light. The green light is being chased. That is the 420 mark, and that could be a world lead. But that gap is still saying, Tim, it's around about 3-4 meters with 200 meters to run.
Well, they're looking fantastic. Hiltz on the shoulder of Chamusto with 200 to run. The rest of them pouring it on as well. Going through that is Guillermo. She's struggling with the pace up front. It's so hard. Into the final 200. It'd be great to see the battle up front, wouldn't it? Now they come in with 120 to go, and Hiltz has hit the front. Hiltz putting on a superb display here. It's been beautifully judged. Maybe more experienced than the 24-year-old Chamusto in second place. And Hiltz is going to hold on for the win. Streaks away. That's about 7 meters at the finish line for Nikki Hiltz. 4:22.09. Wonderfully executed. And I'll tell you what, Janet Chamusto has run supremely well as well. She was probably about a second, maybe a second and a half down. Some quick times there. The fastest time in the world today coming into this race was 4:22.85. And I think Nikki Hiltz has broken that. She has 4:22.07. It's the fastest time in the world this year for the women's mile. Wow.
Yeah, Hiltz is a superb runner. So impressive, so strong. Alice Finot, I think, had a massive shout as she crossed the line. I wonder how close she's got to that French national record as well. So quality running. And I tell you what, superfast size, there you go, a world lead, WL. That's something that the meet organisers would love to have seen, and they've seen that. And there you go, it is a national record, Tim, in 5th place, a French national record, 4:26.68 for Finot.
Nikki Hiltz clearly delighted with that. And the way it was run, I rather fancy there was more in the tank there for Hiltz. James, she really ran a race of 2 halves almost, a superbly strong second half. And what was achieved on that final lap was quite supreme to catch Chamusto, who was on a charge herself. Here is Hiltz down the last 150 and moving away.
Yeah, she's a great runner to watch, so strong. And she timed it to perfection. Loads of strength in that last lap. Does a lot of road miles. There's a bit of strength needed in those. And delighted to take the tape here. On track night of the super fast 5000s. And I tell you what, super fast mile races as well. To go with the 1500s, Tim. We've had something for everyone so far. These middle distance races have not disappointed at all.
Well, 6:57. Alice Finot, the steeplechaser, will have run a big personal best, I think. 4:26 for her, Finot. In fact, I think it might have been her debut. But Nikki Hiltz, a comfortable winner, 4:22.07. Fastest time in the world this year. Over a second and a half ahead of second place, the American. Carrie Hughes, 4:38. Personal bests galore there for the field. A really superb women's mile.
Allez Maxime, on est sur la ligne d'arrivée avec Alice Finot. Alice, quelle course! Un nouveau record de France qui tenait.
Finot been interviewed, Tim, having just set a national record in the mile. What a week, Tim, going from a 9:10 steeplechase into the mile. You said, at the start that she needed to improve that speed. She's definitely done that tonight.
Merci à tous d'avoir organisé et d'être ici pour
absolutely.
célébrer le demi-fond.
And she's doing it right, is Finot, talking to the crowd there, of course, in the local tongue. But I will talk through this. I apologise, my French just not good enough to really give a fair shout at it. But Finot, 4:26.68. James, what do you reckon that's worth? About 4:07, something like that?
Yeah, the conversion normally for 1500 to the mile, you're looking at around about 20 odd seconds. Not in terms of today, in terms of if someone was to run a fast 1500, you'd expect them to be around about that 20-second mark faster. So yeah, definitely a 4.6. So that really does bode well. The fact that she was 10th in those World Championships last year in Oregon. Whether now she's definitely getting towards that 9:10 and under mark. definitely, 9:10 is that bridge now towards 9 minutes, and that speed she's got now over the mile, that extra bit of leg turnover. Hopefully, then that's really going to pay dividends over the barriers and the water jump.
I'm sure it will. Now, I must admit, I thought here Chemusto had the race put to bed with 200 to run, easing away. In fact, no, that was 600 to run, excuse me. But I did think she looked in control, didn't you, James? She looked really strong out in front, looked running as though she was running with confidence. And that really underlines just how powerful and impressive Nikki Hiltz's last 400 was.
Yeah, Chemuso was definitely, someone that made that race in that third lap, gave Hiltz someone to shoot for. That's so important, whether Hiltz was the leader going into that last lap, but she wasn't. She had someone to chase. And coming off that final bend, you could see the grimace, the pain, the mile hurts. Doesn't matter whether you're winning a race or whether you're finished towards the back, it's going to hurt. You feel it in the legs, in the lungs, and Hiltz looks absolutely delighted. She's a great runner, great role model. And the fact she's come out and ran a world lead and led some national records behind her, that's been a super fun evening. So the mile, I hope it stays here. That's something that athletes don't always get a chance to run a mile. So this hopefully could be an annual thing, and we could definitely get inside that 420 with a few other athletes now jumping on. Having seen the men's fast 1500, I just think the middle distance races here are just going to build and build, Tim. It's going to need to be a 2-day program next year.
It absolutely is, yeah. Well, sir, a longer evening of the top elite races. I'm told that makes Nikki Hiltz now the 11th fastest all-time US performer in the mile. And that is quite saying something, because the mile has a wonderful tradition in North America going back many decades. So to get anywhere near the top 10 is special. And Hiltz, well, as I said already, I believe there was a lot more in the tank.
Yeah, and the difficulty is going to be also making the World Championships team in the US. It's so competitive, and obviously running well early on in Europe, making the travel back, and then those US trials, they are cutthroat, aren't they? If you don't get in that top 3, but you've also got to make sure you've got the world standard as well. So Hiltz, I would have thought that 1500 meter spot is definitely something that the eye would be on the prize. Having obviously built on the success, it was such a great meet out in Eugene last year, the World Championships. But the US athletes, got to travel a bit far and wide this year to Budapest. But Budapest will be a great city for the World Champs. But it's been a quick turnaround, hasn't it? So from Eugene to Budapest, just 12 months between those World Championships.
Yeah, I know. Tough call, isn't it? As if there aren't enough championships already for the top Europeans. I mean, look at the Brits last year. Europeans, Commonwealths, Worlds. I was actually really shocked at how many athletes coped with the demands of those 3 championships. Jake Whiteman amongst them. Others who performed really well at all 3. Eilish McColgan and Laura Muir. It's a very, very tough task. And what a lot of people, I think, don't understand, James, is it's not just the physical demands of going to a championships and performing. It's the emotional draining, isn't it, that is so, so tough. You come away from a championship sometimes, and it's not that you're deflated, but you are just exhausted emotionally. And that takes recovery time that is very hard to judge.
Well, last year was an exception, wasn't it? And especially for a lot of the European and Commonwealth athletes with 3 championships. Obviously going from those World Championships, you had the Commonwealth Games in Birmingham straight after, and then you had Munich just a few weeks after that. So some athletes did all 3 championships, and that took its toll on some. This year I think they're just grateful they've got the 1 championship to keep their eye on, so they can definitely focus a little bit more rather than spread themselves too thin. And yeah, you're right, the emotional kind of investment it takes to go into a championship. And as I said, some athletes need to go through super tough qualifications through their national championships. So Nikki Hiltz is going to have to do that in a few weeks in the US. So US championship athletes have to almost do a championship before getting to a championship. Having seen the results in the NCAAs over the last few days, Tim, I don't know if you've seen any, it was harder to make the NCAA's 100 meter final than it was the World Championship final last year. Unbelievable.
Is that right? Yeah, well, we all know that the US championships every year is the second best championships of the season after the Worlds or Commonwealths or Olympics, sometimes better than the Commonwealths, I think. But the NCAA's is not far behind. It is always fantastic ground where so much talent is discovered and all the top agents head out there and not exactly with their checkbooks, but certainly with some persuasive words to sign up those top youngsters, many of whom, of course, see the dollar sign flashing in front of their eyes and after 1 or 2 years of college go, do you know what? That is such a big number. I think I can do without competing for my college. If somebody wants to put that in my bank account every month, I'm up for it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's making that decision, isn't it? It's always the big one in the US about turning professional. And obviously, yeah, the standard, though, when you start looking through those NCAAs, that obviously when they start winning and they've still got a few years of eligibility, they've already kind of made it to what they need to, the level they need to be at professional. So they turn, they have to go to the next level. But I think that, the quality of athletes that keep coming through that system, we've seen that again with some of the athletes on show tonight, but still some great action. We've got 2 very fast 5000s. It's the name of the meet, so this is the name of the game now. So we've got the men's and women's A races. These are 2 races that we've been super excited about all evening. So we're looking at those World Championship qualifying marks. 13:07 for men. We're looking at 14:57 for women. So again, we've got some quality paces, unbelievably strong fields, and that meeting record 15:21 for women and 13:21 for men that were set in the B races. They are minutes away, or they're not going to be lasting too much longer into the evening, Tim, are they?
No, they're not. No, they're not. I think we're just waiting while that women's 5,000 metre field is gathered together. The fact that the meeting is running just a little bit behind time, as I've said, nothing really wrong with that. This race was due underway, James, at 20 past this next 5,000. I'm not sure it's going to hit it unless they have caught up some time somehow. Really good numbers of spectators. I sometimes feel as though there's a little bit too much going on the infield, when you can't see half the race because of the number of marquees and other stuff going on the infield. Then I think sometimes for some of the issues out there needs to be a reassessment. I've said that to Ben Pucci, the organiser of the Night of the 10,000 in North London, where although I wasn't able to go there this year, I was abroad on another gig. The comments I heard from several who were there was that, well, you could only see about a third of the race each lap because there was so much on the infield. And to find balance, isn't it, between blocking off views of the actual race unfolding and producing that party atmosphere and providing everything else that may be needed or perhaps not needed on the infield.
Yeah, but the atmosphere being at Highgate again this year is just unbelievable. I mean, I was part of the meeting back in 2014. I did it as a favour to Ben many years ago, and so when I walked into the arena of play this year to see again year on year, because obviously every year it gets bigger and better. You are right. There's probably a level or a balance to get right with the diehard, the old school track and field nuts out there, but also then to balance it with those new people into the sport as well. So it's always a fine balance of our sport, isn't it, between innovation, development, and bringing in a bit of new kind of fun and experiences to those new fans. And I think that's it. When you look at the Highgate fans, a lot of those, that's their first ever track meet. So that's all they now know, Tim. So they expect marquees on the infield of all meets. They expect a beer and cheer in lane 3. But I think that's something obviously with this meet, and this is what On have looked at with the on-track nights, that they've taken that model, they've tried now to obviously take it around not just Europe but the world, and I think that's such an exciting thing, having started out in Mount Sac in May and we're going to finish in December in Melbourne with 3 European meets in between. I just think this is just such a great thing for athletics, but also athletes are thriving on it. Over 100 top athletes today running massive lifetime best, with a whole load of club athletes also benefiting, Tim.
No, absolutely right. Is this the first 3 from that men's B 1500? I think it is.
Good job. They had 2 Djibouti flags there, Tim. I think Hassan got on the stage for the B race win. So they had their right number of flags ready. And the presentation in that B race So that 13:21 Victor and Hassan, where you saw on the podium shortly before that 15:21 clocking in the women's race.
It's all about attention to detail, isn't it? So many times over the years, the wrong flags have been provided or gone up a flagpole, or the wrong music is played, the wrong national anthem is played. And there are some of the dignitaries or perhaps organisers who have put on this fantastic display of racing at FAST 5000 2023. They can be rightly proud of this, and it will grow. There's no doubt about it. The news will go out far and wide that this is a fast track that produces really quick times in a wonderful atmosphere. The athletes will head off back to their different homes around the world and spread the word, and that is the best possible advertisement, isn't it?
It is. It's taking out then. I think the live streams and getting it out to a wider audience. I mean, again, that's something that, On have done so well, getting it out. And in terms of, breaking down barriers, and that's what this is about. It's about opening it up to different, people and the sport, and as they want to create, a bit more emotion around the sport, but also take it out and really showcase. And I think the fact we're showcasing fast, running tonight, but obviously in a kind of festival atmosphere. I mean, it's the best of the sport. And I mean, this women's A race that they're lining up very, very shortly on the back straight. When you go down the list, I mean, you've got 29 athletes on the original start list. We may have lost a couple, but we'll take you through them when they come up on the screen. But we're looking at those wave lights going towards the 14:40 mark, and that really would be, if we can go sub 15 minutes. That really is quality running in this women's A race 5,000 meters coming up very shortly.
Absolutely, and the World Championship qualifying time at 5,000 metres is what, 14:57. The strength and depth at women's 5,000 still trying to get up to the same as the men's, James, because with the best win in the world, 14:57 is a much softer time than the men's standard of 13:07.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a difference, but obviously we're fresh from a women's world record last night. Faith Kipyegon 14:05 in that race last night. So Elizabeth Gidai took the pace on. She almost ran her own world record out of the equation by pushing the pace on last night. And that fast, I think it was 27 seconds, I think, for the last 200 meters. Faith fresh from that world record shows you that speed going from 3:49, 1500 a week before. That speed versus strength. And Faith showed that last night. But in this women's race, we've got the likes of Nadia Baccaletti, who's love watching her race. Very, very strong Italian. She had great support out in Turin before Christmas in those European cross-country relays as well. And then we're looking at the 7th place in the Olympics over this distance. But there's a really strong field. You've got Alana Bray, who won the European Cup 10,000 last week, also in France in very hot conditions. So interesting to see the turnaround, Tim. I don't know what your experience was, or having coached athletes, that turnaround from running a 10,000 on the track a week ago. We've got a few that have done the European Cup and then trying to run a fast 5,000 a week later. What's your experience of recovery between the races like?
Well, everybody's different, I mean, look at Hassan last week. She ran a 10,000 one day and ran a 1,500 the next day. I mean, this generation of athletes that are out there now is so different to when I was running many years ago. And you're close to it, James. You're coaching now. I was going to ask you, how do you explain this generation of athletes like Jakob Ingebrigtsen, like athletes who like Kipyegon, who are running world-class times at 1,500 meters, breaking world records, and doing the same at 5,000. Now, that was almost unheard of until this last 10 years, and that's probably being generous, probably less than that. Now, I'm not, shoes is the obvious gorilla in the corner of the room, but I don't want to necessarily predict what you're going to say. But there are athletes now running middle distances and, dare I say, long distances in a spread of ability that has never been seen before.
Yeah, obviously shoe technology's had a part to play, but I think training's got a lot smarter. The volume and the conditioning levels of athletes have gone up. And you're right,
Sifan Hassan, that double, there's not been too many double backs like that, running sub 30 minutes for 10K on the track and then running sub 4 minutes for 1500 the next day, but also off the back of winning London just a few weeks before. That is some type of range as the presentation for our 1500 meter runners, and also shows you the level of support, the euros that these athletes are winning in the 1500. It all goes a long way. They've got obviously a lot of expenses through the year to pay for those different training camps, the amount of altitude camps that athletes need to spend time at, the amount of time that they need in terms of physios and masseurs and everyone in their team. That there's all an expense to it. But we've got, I think, double that prize money coming up in the two 5,000s coming up. So those athletes, they won't be worried too much about prize money, but it's an absolute nice bonus if they cross the line in those positions. And I think the 10,000s, Tim, go down to 10th place for prize money. It's quite deep in these two races coming up.
5,000s, yeah, exactly. Of course, the old learning is to not think about the money when you're racing. Stick to the program, stick to what your coach is telling you, what your coach, and don't let the agent get involved too much necessarily, because agents like to keep one eye on the old greenbacks, as they say. But yeah, a little bit of prize money helps.
So an interesting British contingent in this race, and a lot of them on sponsored athletes. So Amy Eloise Markov, who former European indoor 3,000 meter champion. So look out also in that race was the medalist Verity Ockerdam, who was bronze medalist in that race. She also goes in this field. And Amy Pratt, World Championship, 7th placer in the steeplechase. And last year she was also 4th in both the Commonwealths and the European Championships. But she's got a lifetime best of 15:29. That would need some revision. And obviously, to try and back up the fact she's run 9:15 in the chase. So it's going to be fascinating. But a really strong East African contingent in there. And some of these athletes looking to try and make a name for themselves. We saw the quality last night. We saw the depth in Ethiopian and Kenyan running, even to make a World Championship team. So, that time, 14:40 that we're going to be chasing. Some athletes, would like to run even faster than that. But I think, again, pacemakers are going to play a really important part early on. And again, we're looking at around about 70 to 71 seconds per lap would see us operate at that definitely inside World Championship time. But, definitely if we can get towards that 14:40 mark, that would be great running tonight.
It's a big field for this women's 5,000 coming up as we see the first three on the rostrum from that 1,500. What a race it was. What an evening it's turned out too, James. I thought earlier on the clouds, the sky looked a little grey and perhaps a little threatening, but the any storm that may have been suspected or worried about has missed this part of northwest Paris, and it's a lovely, still, glorious June evening.
No, you're right, Tim. It's a beautiful evening now. The wind has dropped from earlier, so temperature-wise now, I think it's around about 22, 23 degrees. So it's dropped. I mean, that for 13 and 15 minutes of running will be absolutely fine. And there's the top spot of the women's 1500. Nikki Hiltz, great bit of running. Those pink socks and white singlet. And she'll take home, I think it's 3,000 euros for winning that women's mile race.
Yeah, she didn't just win it, she dominated it, Nikki Hiltz. Brilliant running in that women's mile race to run 4:22 and come home comfortably the stronger in the latter stages when it mattered. And there's many more seconds in the tank for Nikki Hiltz, no doubt about it. She can go a long way under 4:20, I would say, on the back of that performance. Mighty impressive.
And then the other one is, breaking 4 minutes for 1500. That is still a massive, milestone in women's 1500 meter running. And there's some, very fast 1500 meter races to come. The Diamond League's obviously gathering in full force at the moment, and obviously getting towards Budapest and making sure people get on the plane to those World Championships. But still very busy on the infield here. Still loads of spectators. They reckon that we're up to around about 5,000 in total. Loads of stuff going on, circus acts, loads of food, loads of places to sit and chill. People sat having a nice beer on this beautiful Saturday evening in the capital city of France, and just what a 24 hours of athletics that they've been treated to. I mean, you'll be hard pushed to have found a better 24 hours, Tim.
No, absolutely right. Yeah, Paris will be buzzing. Those Olympic Games are building. You just sense that they are going to be very special. You know, I went to the Sydney Olympic Games in 2000. I thought they are the best ever. They cannot be beaten. Nobody will match this. And then I went to London 2012, and I thought, yeah, that is actually even better. But I think there's a strong suspicion now that Paris will top the lot. You know, you look at the plans they've got for using the Seine, you look at the mass participation road running races that they're planning. The ticket prices, I think, is definitely going to set a world record from what I've been hearing. I saw a figure this morning, somebody saying €600 for tickets.
Wow. So,
Will you be going, James?
Not at that price. I'll have to make sure an athlete of mine qualifies, so someone else picks up the bill. But yeah, that outprices certain people, which is a shame to a degree. But to put on major events, it's not cheap, is it, these days? And you've got cost to cover. And if there's people that are willing to pay that price, then obviously that drives up the demand of it.
No, absolutely right. Absolutely right.
So I think the presentations have been done in those earlier races that we've just seen. So the women's mile was the last presentation we saw. So a slight delay in the programme, but not by much. And I thought no wonder would be a DNS, not start. She was down to race 29.47 in Hengo this year over 10 kilometres, but she raced last night in the Diamond League 14.42. So unless she was doubling back, I didn't expect to see her again. But you can see on there we've got a strong contingent. So from Kenya, there's a good Ugandan number of athletes on show as well. But again, international flavour, Australian Rosie Davis in there, Camilla Richardson, the Finnish athlete, already the pre-mentioned Amy Eloise Markov, the on athlete is on the bottom of that page. Kelly Thackeray, another DNS, I think away, putting a training block in St. Moritz, I believe. Marcia Garcia is another on athlete that we look to go well. Winnie Coletti, so the NCAA's former champion there. She ran very well at night in the 10,000s, taking second place there, 31.04, just ahead of Bata Coletti, who just missed that Italian record there, 31.06 in Highgate for third. But this is more Batacaletti's distance, and having run 14.46, I think she would love to go even faster than that. And again, just a few more DNSs. I think Ockenden, who was mentioned earlier, but good to see Klein in there, who we expected to see doubling back from winning that European Cup, and strong German team that ran in France just a week ago. Just behind, we can see Sela Basani, the Kenyan, 14.48, and I think I can see Amy Pratt and Steph Twirl, two British athletes just on that second row. But been on the second row for a 5,000, Tim. There's so much running to happen. I don't think they're going for a waterfall start with this race. Looks like it's going to be a one start line, unless it's just the sheer numbers. I'll wait for the camera to pan out, Tim.
Yeah, cross-country style, I think. It could be just a little bit of pushing and shoving, and every man for himself, or every woman for themselves. But they will sort it out. It's just a shame, I suppose, that 5,000s begin going into a bend, isn't it? Not ideal.
And it looks like they could be using a waterfall start. There's one of our paces on the outside. So I think we're looking at Charlotte Mollach was one of the paces. So we're looking at around about that 70 seconds per lap. And we had originally 29 on that start list, but that has come down somewhat, which will definitely make it a little bit easier for the organisers, for the runners in those early stages. Purity Katonga, another very good Kenyan. And I talked about earlier about road races that we've had in the last few weeks. There's been a very good road race in Vienna just last week, where a number of athletes went sub 15 minutes on the road. Some athletes run much better on the road and they transfer it poorly onto the track. Others, we used to see that you always ran a lot faster on the track, but it's become a lot closer in terms of that difference between the two services. Ray there, you can see on the outside wearing 5:10. So just looking as if she's wanting to get this race on the way. 5:08 on the inside. That's Naoma Chepgengo, also the Kenyan, and very, very strong again.
over 10,000 metres on the road. So Valencia, a 30-40 strength in those legs. So strong field, they're still organising them, Tim. This looks like it's still going to take a few minutes before we get on our way.
Yeah, but that's okay. It just makes the tension rise. If it was a cool, windy evening or wet even, then the athletes might be getting a little frustrated with any delays, James. But this is fine. It's a lovely warm evening. They'll have warmed up and hydrated just right, I'm sure. And they're itching to get going now. But another few minutes won't matter in these very, very good conditions. If anything, just makes things tightens the nerves a bit more adrenaline in the system. And if you can channel that and learn to control it, which most elite athletes do, then that's a positive.
Yeah, Francine Nemakazanzo is the Burundian athlete, so another on-supported athlete. So again, 13:27 at Highgate. Some of these athletes at Highgate, so it'd be great to hear their comparison of the two meets, or the fact that they're supporting both these meets. And yeah, it's something now that will grow. You know, obviously coming off a good strong winter and running their 10,000 metres before sharpening up a little bit more, but towards 5,000. And some of these athletes are making that decision, Tim, between whether they're going to go 10,000 at Worlds or 5,000 at Worlds, or whether they're going to chase again that 10,000 metre qualifying time, which is 30:40, which not everyone hit. It was outside of the reach of some at Highgate.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you cannot predict the way these races are going to unfold. Sometimes targets are hit with a good margin, good cushion, and other times it just doesn't go quite right. This is a long delay. This race was due off at 20 past, was it I said? Yeah, 20 past, that's 15 minutes ago now.
So just a little bit of organisation.
Yeah, I was going to say, James, the officials have got to get it right, haven't they? Sorry, go on, James.
No, absolutely. Just given, I think, the number of athletes, it's just placing them in the right order and just making sure they get them safely on their way. So I think we're moments, Tim, aren't we, away from this women's A race. So one of the eagerly anticipated races of the evening. We've already seen some phenomenal racing in the men's and women's A and B 5000s. We've had a superb 3:32 1500 metre men's win. We had a 3:39 men's 1500 metre B race, a world lead in the women's mile. So what can we see in the women's 5000 coming up very shortly?
I've got a sneaking feeling it's going to continue. More of a moving target in a way at 5,000 metres, more time for something to go wrong, for adjustments in the race, slowings and so on to affect the overall outcome. But conditions are so good and these athletes are up for this. And I wonder subliminally too, James, subconsciously, whether or not, you know, the events last night at the Diamond League meeting will have affected some of these athletes. They'll have watched that without any doubt, every single one of them, to a man. Many of them will have been there, I suspect, and they will have been inspired by what they saw. The world records, the world best by Ingebrigtsen, and the fabulous racing elsewhere. I mean, the men's 800 that closed the show last night was super fast. The depth of it was astonishing. And, you know, that sort of rubs off, I think, even if they're not really thinking about it.
Yeah, was it 7 guys sub 144? I mean, that was, you know, so strong. I mean, I think it does. I mean, when athletes watch other performances, and also I suppose it moves on the mental parameters. You know, when we're seeing women getting close to breaking 14 minutes of 5K, that's the next barrier, isn't it? You know, we obviously seen Faith go inside 3 minutes and 50 for 1500 meters. So yeah, I mean, it changes, you know, the parameters of what is good running. It talks about that world standard that will start shifting as well, as runners every year keep getting faster and faster. But they can only race what it is at the moment, 14:57, and many of these runners will have their eye on that. So if you're looking at the wave lights on the inside, rouge, the red, will be the World Championship time, and we're looking at 14:40. That is kind of the goal time for the meet, which will be the green. And then there's, I think it's a 15:15, which is still very good running. That's still way inside what we saw in the B race. That'll be the white lights behind as well. So the starter, final whistle to the timing team, and we're going to get on our way in this women's A race, following on from that fantastic women's B race earlier today. So the gun is almost up here on the track night. Fast 5000s women's A race.
And there we go, the anticipation. They've been waiting for, it seemed like forever on that start line, Tim, and they're on their way, 12 and a half laps, the women's A race.
Yeah, they're impatient to get going now, aren't they? Let's hope there's no misjudgments in tempo. The pacer needs to get it exactly right. I always find that funny when an athlete is right on the outside and they zip straight across to the inside instead of running the tangent. Why not just head for the far end of the track where you need to rejoin the inside lane and save yourself a couple of metres?
Well, it's interesting, the only person that was on the outside lane was the pacer. So the other races, they have split them in that waterfall start where they do obviously split them half and half. So it looked like they had most of them on that inside lane. So the pacer was the only one coming across. So looks like it's fast. Remember, we're looking at around about 70 seconds per lap. So when you can see from front to back, it's almost 50 metres, Tim, in the first lap. This is quick up front.
It is quick up front. And not quite as quick towards the back. And they go through their wood. And about 67, I reckon. James, 67. Yeah, it was 67 for that first lap.
Well, that's operating low 14-minute pace, so it has to settle down. Sometimes with a large field, it's about getting out, getting into position, and it's a tough thing to do early on, is to lock in and make sure you're not running too wide, as that head-on shot shows that some runners are trying to make their way into position. You can see that's Alchelem, the Ethiopian, wearing 5-2-1. He's a 15-14 athlete. So some of these athletes, their personal best, Tim, when I went through, I'm thinking that's going to be obliterated in this race. I mean, they've got some strong pedigree over longer distances, some very good cross-country runners in here as well. But for some, they just haven't seemingly had the opportunity to run a fast 5,000, and that's exactly what they're going to get tonight.
No, exactly right. Of course, there are many meetings around that are very, very selective and choosy. And I hear stories from some of my friends who are agents regularly about how desperately they're trying to get athletes into races and they just cannot get them in. And these athletes are all so grateful, so pleased to be able to race in a meeting like this, organised by their sponsors, and where, fortunately, conditions are absolutely superb. Nobody can control the weather. You can control everything else, but not the weather. And yet they have struck it lucky tonight. And this is going to be quick. There's no doubt about it. 72 seconds per lap is 15 minutes. What are they going to be coming through 1,000 metres in? It needs to be 3 minutes. Looks to me like it might be a little bit inside that, James.
Yeah, we were looking at 2:57 was the goal pace for the Pacers, so 2:55. So yeah, that's operated inside. That's about 14:35 pace. So that's really good pacing. So yeah, they're inside the 14:40. You can see the wave light that the Pacers in front of. So they're doing a great job, and they are starting to splinter groups. So not everyone's on the back of that pack almost. So there's going to be some long, lonely running for some athletes in there because, yeah, the pace up front has been brutal for that first kilometre. But that's exactly what they wanted. These athletes need to step up now. When you looked, I think, last night in the Diamond League, I think 14:21 got you something like 5th or 6th. I think 14:45 got you 10th place. So, yeah, these athletes now know that they're going to have to start shifting their own mindset and have to start thinking about 14:30 being a mark that they need to get towards tonight.
Well, Britain's Steph Twell is right at the back of the field, the Aldershot Farnham District athlete. She has had so many injury problems over the years. Commonwealth bronze medalist way back in 2010. And it's not looking good for Twell at the moment. Let's really hope she can keep it together and move up through the field. But she's way back off the front end at the moment. And that lap, James, 72.05. We were talking about 72 seconds per lap for 15-minute pace. So that's really sound pacemaking.
Yeah, Sila Bushanai is the Kenyan athlete that is in the tall, it looks like a Barcelona kit. So the athlete that was third in the Commonwealth Games last year. So she had fond memories of that Birmingham Stadium and that crowd that roared on Ailish McColgan to that absolutely phenomenal Commonwealth gold medal. And tonight, there she is. It is a Barcelona kit. I think they do, don't they, have
a team, don't they, Tim? The Spaniards are quite clever, aren't they, with linking some of their clubs and organisations together. So I think that's not just a fan of the Barcelona Football Club. I think she's running for the Barcelona team there.
Well, yeah, I mean, I love that European model. It's, in the Iberian Peninsula, Spain and Portugal, and in other European countries, Italy as well, you get these multi-sport clubs. And, for example, Sporting Lisbon, the football club, helps support the other sports, whether it's sports that produce good money in their own right anyway, like basketball, say, or sports that do need some financial assistance. And unfortunately, that's not been adopted in Britain. I wish it were. You get these football clubs that are obscenely rich, awash with money. Now, I love my football, but they don't help the community outside of their own sport in a sporting context. They don't help other sports in the city, and I would love to see that happen. They help charities. They do a wonderful job for charity, but you're dead right that what they do in Spain and Portugal and one or two other places is a brilliant model, just assisting the whole genre of sport.
So this is going to be the 2K mark, Tim. So yeah, we're back to the original pace that was requested. That's 2:57 per kilometre. So we're 5:53 through 2 kilometres. So we're right on the pace we wanted. You see the athletes there going through there, just outside 15-minute pace, probably 15-20 pace. And you see Amy Pratt was one of those in the on singlet going through. But at the front, you can see those wave lights are getting away slightly. That was the 14:40 mark. So at the moment, that's not something they're chasing. 6:91. That's an athlete we talked about earlier, Winnie Coletti, who's the USA athlete originally from Eritrea, and she won NCAA titles, running very well. I think it was New Mexico, where she was based in Albuquerque, and she's moving very well at the moment through the different distances, and she's got a great team. I think she's part of. I think she's going to really continue to develop. But I can see her probably ended up being a marathon runner, but right now trying to develop her speed over the shorter distances. She's run sub 15 minutes, but having missed the World Championship qualifying mark in the 10,000 at night of the 10,000s back in Highgate, tonight I think goal number one for her is to make sure she gets that World Championship qualifying time in the 5,000.
Well, Bichenier is leading now. 7 minutes on the clock, still a long way to go. They're not at halfway yet. Now, is she going to push it on here and stretch them out, or is she going to let somebody else take it on and rely upon her speed? It's an option you have if you're amongst the favourites in big races like this and you've got the full armoury. 5-2-1. Just checking. Ayachu is a 15-14 performer. She's operating at something like 20 seconds tempo quicker than she has ever done before. Tiny little figure there. Bichenier is huge, isn't she? She towers over the rest of that leading pack.
Yeah, she's a tall runner, and they are swapping the lead out as well. So I think that's is going to be a grateful thing. You don't want to be on the front of that lead group too long. Given that there's 6 athletes, it's a strong 6 athletes in this lead group. So in just under around about 250 metres will be the 3 kilometre mark. So again, we'll see whether they've continued, having lost the pacemaker. Pacemaker did a great job through that 2 kilometres, but it's a tough bit next couple of kilometres to make sure they maintain the pace in this women's A race. Those green lights are getting away from them for that 14:40 mark, but you can see that red light, that World Championship mark light there, Tim. They are way inside that at the moment.
Boy, what a spread. I mean, from the front of the field to the back, it's about 150 metres. This is the lead pack coming down now, as you said, James, to the 3 kilometre point. Anything under 9 minutes would be good running. It was 5:53 at 2K. This should be about 7:50 something. 8:50. 8:51.98. So a slightly slower third K there. The kilometres have got slightly slower, haven't they? The second and third Ks, but that's still great running. Way under 15-minute tempo.
Yeah, a slight drop, but only just by about a second. So as long as it stays inside that 3 minute per kilometre, these athletes at the moment, all 6 will be inside that World Championship qualifying mark. But it's just the case now, if they can pick it up, we would love to see that clock-in be towards the 14:40 mark. But also the athletes behind know that they're very close to that world standard as well. But also whether anyone can bridge the gap. It looks like it's significant that the winner is going to come from that leading 6, because trying to close the gap, Naomi Chepgengo the Kenyan athlete, and there's a big, strong group. So Ray's at the back of that as well. I don't know whether she closed that gap. See, Marianne, I think Deki, I think it's the Austrian athlete in there as well. I don't think she's going to close that gap either.
No, and Ray is a good athlete. So it shows how quick this tempo is, under 14:50 tempo. If she can't live with it. All East African, this contingent out in front. Familiar sight, of course. And they are sharing the lead. Bussenier now back out in front, pushing it along. She looks very relaxed. Those long, long legs don't look as busy as the two athletes at the back of that group, for example. Oh, a little bit of a clip there. I think the athlete in the orange shorts clipping the athlete in front of her. But nobody went down.
Nibret Lemlem, I think, is one of the athletes in the centre of that. So fifth in the World Junior Cross Country Championships. So and a good kind of 71-minute half marathon recently. So she's got a good engine. And yeah, having, you know, when you watch that World Junior Cross Country Championship, anyone that gets top 10 there, Tim, is of, you know, real pedigree. So she's stepping up today to the senior ranks very well. And this, you know, if she stays in the kind of pace and company she's in at the moment, it is going to be a really good senior kind of development for her.
Well, 11 minutes on the clock. We're getting to the business end, James, of this 5,000 metres. I always found with a couple of minutes to go, 2 or 3 minutes to go, you could grit it out, and sometimes in severe discomfort, you could last 2 or 3 minutes. If you're in trouble mid-race, a bit like a marathon, really, in its own way, then you are in real trouble because you've got a long, long way to go. But over the last kilometre, most athletes can rally and just make it mind over matter, so to speak.
They can. The next split we're going to get, Tim, is the 4 kilometres. So they're down the back straight. So again, in terms of the repetitions, the amount of training, I mean, they're covering over 160 kilometres per week, you know, up to 100 odd miles a week. But in terms of repetitions, lots of kilometre reps. So they will know this territory very well. And often it's about picking it up. There you go, 2:59, the slowest kilometre of the race. So it's gone to 11:51. So it's still way inside World Championship time, but I expect the last kilometre now to be the fastest. Given that there's 6 athletes in contention, Tim, someone's patient has to break and someone has to be the aggressor now.
Yeah, World Championship qualifying times, you know, if they're still looking at something around 14:50, that is super fast. Bragging rights at stake, prize money at stake, and not insignificant prize money for many athletes in this race. Not all athletes sign 6-figure sponsorship deals. 5-1, they're just dropping back and suffering now is Ayachu. She's a 15-14 athlete. She was on schedule for a massive personal best. That may be just a minor personal best now, although every kind is welcome if you break it by a minor margin. That's still great running. But we're down to 5, James. And interesting, because Bussenier is still out in front, isn't it? And beginning to wind it up. I sense a slight acceleration there down the back straight.
Yeah, Bussenier looks very strong. She's got a long, rangy stride, but you can see there's definitely pain X on her face and almost a stumble then by the 5 athletes behind. They know with 600 meters to go, someone if they're feeling good, has to make a move now because, you know, 5 athletes, it's still very, very close in proximity between them all. And as fatigue hits in, you don't want to miss the break. You don't want to, you know, go too late. As you said, it's decent prize money. It's about now who's going to win the race. They're going to get inside the World Championship qualifying mark. It's just a case now who's going to be your top 3 on the podium.
Well, coming to the bell, James. Anybody's race. 5:07 moving wide. Nibret Lemlem into an attacking position. And Bussenier all of a sudden is swallowed up by 2 athletes. She's in 3rd at the moment, and she's done so much of the work through the second half of this race. But has she got the legs through this last 300?
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating down the back straight. Keep an eye on the clock. So an athlete wearing at 7:07, I think, added later to the finishing line, finishing list there, Tim. Do you have them on your list?
7:07.
7:06 is the leader.
7:06, yes, that's Medina Esa of Ethiopia. No times for her. She is a late addition. We got sent lists literally a few minutes before we came on air, but it is Medina Esa, E-I-S-A, of Ethiopia.
Well, put that name into your Wikipedia of runners, because Asia is coming down towards the finishing line, 7:06. She didn't have a lifetime best, but she's absolutely smashed it on the track there, 14:46.63, and it's well, you can see that's a fantastic time. Those times there should have been updated, because that world lead is obviously from last night, the 14:05. Some big times behind. You can see they've beaten the wave like. So it's going to be interesting to see how many have gone inside that 14:57 best time that will be a world qualifier. Ray crossing the line there. Chalanga, the Ugandan, a new lifetime best for her. But Issa there, that's 14:46, Tim. That's a minute and 14 seconds faster than the meet record set 12 months ago. This meet is going from strength to strength.
Yeah, and I suspect that enough athletes will see this tonight and will want to come back next year, and the times will move on a stage next year as well. It's been quite superb. 14:46.60, in fact, for Asa there, and Chalang at 14:50.93. Great running. And I tell you what, James, I think it is so warm that it is actually not ideal conditions. Nobody wants to be running in 24, 25 degrees centigrade heat. Not when it's early summer for the Europeans, and they're not really accustomed to it. Maybe some of the East African athletes are used to it, but it's still not conducive to optimal performance.
Yeah, you can see, I think it's taking its toll on some athletes. I think for some, they train in fairly warmer conditions and climates, and but for others, I think, 24 degrees maybe just took its toll. We saw athletes that were coming off the pace much earlier than we thought they were going to, Tim. I expected a few more to be knocking on the door towards the 15 minutes. There'd be a few slightly disappointed athletes out there, a few coaches and athletes that need to go back to the drawing board. But it was fascinating to see a 14:46 time. So we were anticipating that time being around about the 14:45 to 14:40 mark. And to have a 14:46 new meet record, it really takes the meet from strength to strength.
Well, it improves Medina Issa's personal best for 5,000 by some 13 seconds. Let me tell you, James, she was a late addition to the race. I wish we'd been told. World Junior Champion last year in Cali, Colombia at 5,000 metres. She was second in the World Junior Cross Country in Bathurst back in February. She is already a bit of a star, but she would be more of a star now after a win like that, where she's taken down some big names. And clearly there's more to come from her. I mean, 18 years old. Boy, oh boy, what's she going to be doing in 4 or 5 years? There's just this production line of Ethiopians and Kenyans that is quite astonishing. And the rest of the world still reeling season after season as more names just appear.
It does. The strength, the depth, and just the quality of runners. And when you go from being a world junior champion and then stepping up again, I think it's great to see the strength and just it's the depth of the runners that we've had at the moment that are coming from Ethiopia that are just so exciting to see.
Well, the men's 5,000 metres next. The men's A 5,000 will clear the show. But James, very impressive there. It's the first 5 under 15 minutes.
Yeah, look at the times there, and that's what we wanted. We had 5 athletes inside that World Championship qualifying time. Hannah Klein there just outside the 15-minute mark, and Bakataletti there also just outside 15 minutes. So Alana Ray there back in 14th place, and strong times. There you go, 17th place there, Tim, 15:18. Real strength and depth in that women's 5,000 metre A race.
Absolutely. Anything close to 15 minutes is superb. The world has moved on, there's no doubt about that. Good job done by the pacemakers. They set it up wonderfully well. That opening kilometre, 2:55. The second kilometre was 2:58, and they reached 3,000 in 8:51. And it was clear from that point that the winning time was going to be a long way under 15 minutes. And the organisers, well, I'm so pleased for them, James, because there is so much work in pulling a race like this together, a meeting like this together, and they have been rewarded in one event after another.
Oh, they have. I think, there is so many moving parts, the amount of people that are involved in this and the planning. I know, again, speaking to Ben Pochi with Night of the 10,000s, that it starts literally the moment they lock the doors from that meet, that the organisation, what needs to be done, how they're going to make it bigger and better.
and the infrastructure and the people involved, and obviously there's loads of partners there. But I think the support of On Running and the fact that they their mission is to get running out and make it something that it starts to change the culture and bring it to a new audience. I think that's something that younger children seeing phenomenal runners on their doorstep, but also just seeing the strength and depth of the running groups that we have on show today. And I think the times that we've seen, not just over the 5,000 meters tonight, but over the mile, over the 1,500 meters, and we've still got that men's A 5,000 meters to come. Can we knock on the door of 13 minutes?
Well, she's a special talent, is Medina Essa. Remember that name, 18 years old, winning major races like this. She will be around for years and years yet, and no doubt world and perhaps Olympic medals coming her way. She's already a world junior champion, world under-20 champion, I should say, to get it exactly correct. But you know what too, James, is really comes across is there are natural races, naturally smart races, aren't there? A lot of these Ethiopians and Kenyans and Ugandans. I suppose it helps if you've got the ability, you just stay with the front pack and then accelerate in the latter stages, and it looks like you've run a perfectly judged race. But it's easier said than done. And she ran a textbook classy race there tonight, kicking away really hard with about 250, 300 to run.
Yeah, it was a mature run for someone that's still developing. I think, again, I think we have seen someone that's going to be, very hard, to beat in some much faster races. I think, she was biding her time. And I think that the speed, to win a race like that and run away from a quality field that are being assembled tonight, as I said, a young developing athlete, but mature head on her shoulders, Tim.
Absolutely. So the men's 5,000 A race, the only remaining event that's coming up, and it is of the very highest caliber, I can assure you. The target time 12:55, 62 seconds per lap. "29 starters then in this final event of the Fast 5,000 evening. The men's A 5,000 meter race. It was due off 15 minutes ago, but that matters not a jot. The flexibility of this format is clear. And here are some of the best athletes that are out there. As I said, there are several who've run under 13 minutes. Bahanu Bailu is perhaps one of the best-known names, the 27-year-old Bahraini, former Ethiopian, been Bahraini since October 2014. Other names to look out for: Hosea Kiplanga. Well, he's a 13-13 man, but that was on the roads a couple of years ago, and his track 5,000 is due a massive revision. He's only run 13:21, the Ugandan. There we are, Bailu. He's 29th on the list. In fact, 34 starters according to this, which is a little worrying because I've got 29 on my paperwork. But we'll get there somehow. James, your turn to find those missing runners.
Yes, I'll return the favour, Tim. I think Ian Crow-Wright was one of those, the British athlete that recently ran 13:28. I think it looks like he's got an upgrade into the A race, Tim. So I'll give you that one for free. But interesting, George Mills is in there as well. Recent World Championship qualifying mark, 3:33, coached by Thomas Dressinghacker, the coach of OAC Europe. So Robert Farken also running that phenomenal 3:33 time as well. But interesting, we're talking about George Mills. How far will George Mills go, being that he hasn't really got too much pedigree over even 3,000 metres, Tim?
Well, no, that's right. I mean, if he can go 4 laps, something like that, it would be great. If he can go 5 laps, it would be superb. Set it up, George Mills, as a pacemaker. Let's have a look at some of these athletes. 192. That is Jan Schrub of France. He's a 13:11 performer. 188, Mahawi Mebratu of Eritrea. 13:04 performer, Mebratu. 117, Salim Kedar of Algeria. Well, he's a 3:35 1,500 meter runner. Making his debut is Kedar, and he ran that 3:35 10 days ago in Montreuil. What can he do here? It could be something spectacular. 191, Kidanu to the right of picture. 13-14 performer. But so many of these East Africans are desperately keen to run fast, impress agents, impress sponsors, make some money to take home. 129, Bastien Augusto of France. He's a 13:38 performer. He's not down as a pacemaker, but he will be struggling to live with the front-end tempo for very long, I'd have thought, Augusto, unless he's in very special form. Looks like he's been drawn the short straw at the moment, doesn't it, James? What's he out there on his own for? Anybody going to join him?
Yeah, James West there, 1-2-0. So another talented British athlete. And yeah, I think they're just, again, doing the organisation. So just making sure that everyone's in the right place to make sure that there's a safe start. As you said, Tim, the numbers have gone up. I think we have lost a few. There's a few DNSs, but there's also been a few athletes added to this men's A race.
Well, we're looking for each kilometre to be covered in 2:35. That's 62 seconds per lap. Mighty fast. 4:09 pace for a mile, if you want it that way. There's Bailu to the right of picture. 1, 2, 3. Alexis Millet. 13:22 performer. Big fella, isn't he? Dominates. Head and shoulders almost literally above the athletes around him. But Bailu, well, he's broken 13 minutes twice. He was 6th in the Olympic Games in Tokyo back in 2021. Asian champion over 5,000 in 2019. He's a great racer. His 12:56 personal best came in the Rome Golden Gala meeting back in 2019. So a little while ago now. 135, that is another interloper, so to speak, a new name that we've got to try and identify, and we will do that as the race unfolds. Nervous moments, though, for these fellas. Yeah, 1 or 2 of them showing the nerves.
It's almost the anticipation, Tim, isn't it, of the pain that they're going to be putting themselves through. There's a lot of laps, a lot of hard running, and obviously we're looking at some pretty phenomenal times. As you said last week, we had what was a world record in terms of 13 athletes inside 13 minutes. We don't expect 13 athletes tonight to be inside 30 minutes, but we would love one to be inside that. But also we would love a few more to be inside that 13:07 world qualifying mark. And yeah, there's a whole host of athletes that will be on their radar. So we're looking at some fast running. If you think 13:20, 64, so it's way inside that. We're looking at 62 seconds, aren't we, Tim? 61 to 62 seconds for 12 and a half laps. So for anyone that does run out there, that gives it some perspective of how tough and how hard it is for these athletes. And the paces, they've got a really important job. We hope they can get somewhere towards that kind of 7:45, 7:50 mark, Tim, for the first 3,000 metres.
Yeah, anything around 7:50 would be great. In fact, that was the time they got to 3,000 in Florence last week, and that was a super fast race, as you just explained quite rightly, James. So 7:50, 7:52, even 7:55 would be great. So off 7:55, you can run under 13:10. And these fellas will, I'm sure. 8 minutes at 3,000. That is a 13:20 pace. That is old hat now. Used to be good long, long time ago. But frankly now, if you're not running under 13:10, you're almost literally not at the races. It is a different world. So you can look across there and try and pick out a 5,000 metre field, or you can just see a very well lit stadium. But they will get underway any second, this field. And then hard, fast racing. Cooling a little bit in northwest Paris as darkness descends on the arena. In a way, almost torture, this. It's just being held up with a long delay like this for the athletes. If you're out there, you just want to get it underway, don't you, James? You've been there in major championship finals. You just want to get running.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's just, it's the anticipation, especially when it's already a few minutes later. And I think we saw that maybe in the women's race where they went out, that first lap was about 67 seconds. So it was a little bit faster than was actually needed. And so, you almost don't want it to just be too much of a delay. There's so many nerves. You've done all your warm-up a long, long time ago. You've even done your last few strides, what seems an age ago. And as I said, you know what's coming. You know this is going to be painful. For some, this is going to make or break their season. So, they just want to get on their way now. So I think any more of a delay and, the nerves just keep building and building. But also the nerves of the pacemakers, they know that they've got to get out. They know they've got to control the pace. And so, there's just a nervousness all round at the moment. But, conditions-wise, it's dropped another couple of degrees. Maybe that's what the timers and the starters waiting for, that temperatures to keep dropping. There is almost no wind here now, Tim. So you can see the flags in the background are literally still. And it's just a case now of our start team getting our last race of what's been a superb day here in Paris. The Fast 5000 is now way established in that calendar. And more and more people are going to flock here year on year. Almost ready for the start of the men's 5,000 metre A race.
He's not to be rushed, this gentleman, is he? The starter. No. I'm in charge, gentlemen. Step back from the line, please. Always mystifies me that people manage to get their toes on the line.
S'il vous plaît, please.
You can't ride it, Tim. You can't ride it. I think they're getting a little bit twitchy now, aren't they? You can just tell.
À vos marques.
At last, the final race of Fast 5000 2023 in Paris is underway. Big field, 29 starters, or was it 35 at the last count? I've lost count now, James, but it's a big field anyway. One of the biggest I've ever seen in an elite track 5000.
Yeah, it's a big field. You can see the lights of the on tent there lighting up now, the green glow as they go through. So the crowd here is still so strong. It's 10 past 10 in Paris, and I tell you what, they just wanted to get that A race on the way. They're on their way now, Tim. So we're looking, aren't we, around about 61 to 62 seconds per lap will be optimum pace.
Well, look at that. Hardly a breath of wind. All the flags hanging limp vertically downwards, and it's like a Scandinavian night. It's like those beautiful nights when you could go up to Oslo or Stockholm or some of the smaller venues in Scandinavia and find conditions just absolutely spot on like this year after year. And these athletes hopefully will take full advantage of it tonight in Paris because they are moving well. We need to see 62 seconds per lap, ideally. And it might be close to that. We'll see as they come through 600. Of course, it should be 93, I think. How's your maths, James?
Yeah, that sounds about right to me, Tim. So I think, the pace has done a good job thus far. That's such a hard thing, just settling down the early pace. And around about 134, 133, but that's fine. Much better to be a little bit more controlled through that first 600 than see a 129, and that would end up blowing everyone's legs out the water. So pace is doing a great job so far.
Well, I might beg to differ. I mean, that was almost 64 seconds, that lap. 63.79 to 700 metres, so to 600 metres, rather. So they don't need any more 63.5, 64-second laps. This is coming through to 800 metres now, and that's better. That's about 2:06. I think he's actually picked it up the last couple hundred metres. Good job being done, as you say. 135, though, who we were trying to identify, is Jerry Motsau. He was meant to be in the B race of the 5,000. He's a 13:22 performer, but he has run 7:40 for 3,000. So maybe he's begged his way into this race and looking for a new personal best.
Yeah, there's always a little bit of negotiations. Obviously, athletes have run times in the last couple of weeks that have moved them between races. And interesting, earlier we talked about George Mills and whether he might be pacing, but George Mills is tucked right in the middle of that group, Tim. So unless he's pacing a middle group in there, George Mills is running a 5,000. So I'm fascinated to see 3:33 very recently over 1,500 metres, and tonight going over 5,000 metres. And he's tucked right in the middle of that group, and they're coming down towards having completed 3 laps.
Well, the pacemaker is Valentin Gondouin, and he's doing a pretty good job stretching them along now. 1-2-1. Back in third place is the Ugandan Dan Gibet. He's a 13:16 performer. Did that just about 2 weeks ago in Oudegem in Belgium. He was fourth in the World Under-20 cross country, so we know he's in great shape. Fourth in Bathurst at the World Cross Country. African Junior Champion as well this year at 5,000 metres. So Gibet in third place. We'll watch him. He wears 1-2-1. 109 moving down the outside. That is Rodrigo Quizera, who has only 13:20 on the track, but actually has run 13:11, can you believe, on the roads. And I was looking at his card earlier, Quizera, and it's all his very strong and in good shape. His first track race of 2023, this, 8th in the World Cross Country. Now, to get in the top 15, 20 in the World Cross, you've got to be in superb shape. Finishing the top 10, you've got to be special. So watch him, 109 as well.
Yeah, no, I was looking out for him as well. You're absolutely right. If you get top 10 at World Cross Country, you are some aerobic beast, and therefore turning that into 5,000 metres, this could be a really special run for him tonight. So they've got way through the mile here. Looks like they're on schedule at the moment. Next lap, that will give us the 2 kilometre mark, and there's still a lot of running to go in this men's A race.
Well, the crowd loving this one, roaring them on lap after lap. What a good job Gondouin is doing as pacemaker. 105 there on the outside is Egide and Takarutimana, or Burundi, the 25-year-old. He's a 13:08 performer. He was fourth in the night of the 10,000s in London back on the 20th of May. What was that, 3 weeks ago in 27:37. We know he's in good shape. In fact, he was a World Championship finalist at 10,000 last year in Eugene, Oregon. There's a lot of good caliber athletes out there sorting themselves out, but because of the size of the field, they are so stretched out. And, if you're not going to be up in the top 6 or 8, James, you can actually end up being 20, 30 metres behind the front end for much of the race, even though you're comfortable enough at the pace. So it's a difficult one. I mean, some people would say this field is too big at 29 starters. That's exceptionally large for a 10,000, for a 5,000.
It is.
Or was it 34 starters? Excuse me.
It's tough to say no. As you said, the screenshot then of front to back on that back straight, it was almost covering the 400 metres, but the pace that they were operating at, I mean, we are 5:14 through 2 kilometres, so we're maintaining the pace. Pacemaker's done a great job, to get as far as he's done. It's almost a hard 3K from the front. I wonder whether we might get one more lap. Let's see what this lap split is. It was 62.9 last lap. It's 63.9, Tim. So you're right. We those 63 highs or 64s, they're just not quite fast enough.
So what you need now is somebody in the infield tell the pacemaker to get off the track, because he's holding them back. They're chomping at the bit to get past him. I think that, there's a whole load of athletes breathing down his neck. That's a 64-second lap. That is 13:20 pace. That's nowhere near what was requested. 5:14 is a few seconds slower. We were looking for 5:10 at 2,000 to be on 12:55 tempo. And he's working hard, he's grimacing the pacemaker, and that's not what you need. You need a pacemaker in control, relaxed, and doing a good, steady job out in front. And he's actually holding them back a little bit now.
Yeah, someone needs to take up this tendency now. I think they have now. Pacemaker has pulled aside. Still, look at that pack. That is a train of fast runners. So we need to now operate and get it back on that 62-second mark if we're going to pull back that 13 minutes, and definitely that 13:07 mark. You can see the red marker there, the red lights. That is World Championship pace at the moment. So they're off what we thought the 13-minute pace, but we are chasing that 13:07 world qualifying time.
64.65 that lap. That's a shame. It has slowed dramatically these last couple of laps, and they're now operating at a tempo that's outside 13:20, and the pack is bunching. There's a pack about 12 or 14 covered by, 8 or 9 metres at the front end of this one, and it's not unfolding the way we had hoped. The women's 5,000 was a superbly fast race, won with the first 5, was it, James? I think getting the World Championship qualifying standard. But this race, look, 4 abreast down the back straight as they come through 7 laps. When they go through the finish line next time, it'll be 3,000 metres, but it's not going to be that much inside 8 minutes.
No, the tempo's definitely dropped. I think this is going to be around about the 240 mark for that kilometre, which is still maybe going to be around about the 755, maybe 757. So, yeah, it's going to need a good last 2 kilometres. They're going to need to pick it up. Expect how strong this field is at the moment, that someone has the speed to pick up that last kilometre. There we go, 7:54.79, and that was a 240 kilometre, Tim.
Yeah. Mid-race, as soon as the pacemakers dropped out. In fact, it was before the pacemaker dropped out, the pace slackened. What a shame when you see the massive array of talent gathered tonight in this arena and for these various races as one athlete drops out. What a shame they couldn't find somebody to push on through the middle section of the race and take them through towards 3,000, perhaps closer to 750. Nonetheless, great race unfolding. As they push down the back straight, there has definitely been an acceleration over the last 200 or 300 metres. Gaps are appearing. That big pack that was about 12 or 14 strong, James, is stretched out now, and we're down to little groups of 3 or 4.
Yeah, there's pockets appearing. The speed has definitely picked up. It'd be interesting to see what this lap split is, because on this last lap, yeah, the aggression, the speed, you can see that the facial expressions have changed, and now 5 athletes, Tim, are pulling away. Let's see what this lap split makes with a mile to run.
Yeah, 61.80, much more like it. That was quick. I think maybe they would have got a yell or a scream, or who knows, a kick up the backside from agents and coaches nearby saying, what are you playing at? 64 seconds plus for each lap is way outside. You can do that in training. This is a great race. 3 away though. 61.8 is a vicious acceleration. The field, James, had almost been lulled into running 64-second laps for about 3 laps. Then the acceleration goes in, and you've got this gap now. You've got this small pack now. In fact, I think it's a pack of 5 there with 3 behind. But they would need to reach 4K. Well, if they were anything like sub-13 tempo, it would have been 10:20. It's going to be slower than that as they go through the finish line with through 4,000 though. 30 seconds to go. Yep, they're going to be way outside that. Still doing a great job is Antuka Ridmana. 18th in the World Championships last year. He's a 7:43 5,000 guy. There's a 63.8, so a 61.8, followed by a 63.8. You know what I learned, James, and I couldn't do it, but when you're going to stick in hard, fast laps in the middle of a 5,000, I was told, and Brendan Foster told me this, too late, of course, he told me. He said, it's not the hard lap you put in, it's the lap after that that matters. It's that anybody can throw in a 60 or 61, but if you wilt yourself, it defeats the object. It's the ability to put in a hard lap after the fast lap that is what crushes the opposition. And Antuka Ridmana has not done that there. He's done a 61.8 and a 63.8, and he's lost a little bit of the sort of reward that he could have earned.
Yeah, because I think his teammates gone past him, the other Burundian in there. So remember, Vasti Nyangabo, probably the famous of Burundian 5,000 metre world Olympic champion, wasn't he, in 1996? So Burundi 1-2 in this group at the moment, but I think the lead is changing all the time. So they've gone through that 4 kilometre mark, coming down now with 800 metres to run. You can see the clock there. Let's see what this lap is. Yeah, it's dropped again, Tim. 64.09 with 2 to run. But I expect them to close in around about 2 minutes this last 800. So it is going to pick up, but we're not going to break 13 minutes tonight.
Well, we need to worry less about the time and focus upon the great racing unfolding. Still doing a great job is Ntaka Rutimana of Burundi. That is one of the great names for a commentator. I'm so glad he's not a sprinter. But the rest of them are there breathing down his neck as well. 109 looking wonderfully relaxed. That is Quizera, who I mentioned as a 13:11 guy on the roads. And he's in very good shape. He's a 61.5 minute half marathon runner. He's got enormous strength. Has he got the speed? Because this has become, over this last mile or so, a tactical affair, hasn't it?
It has. Jan Schwab, the French athlete, I think first of the French athletes, trying to close that gap. You can see him almost trying to suck that air in. You can see probably around about, what is that, 30-40 metres, or maybe the foreshortening of the camera distance, we're in 1:92. But he's got a 13:11 lifetime best, so he's going to need a 60 last lap to get close to that. The race is on, Tim, into this last lap.
It is certainly on. Pack of 4 with one athlete just 2 or 3 metres off the back of them. 131 at the front there, Mohamed Ismail. Looking strong, the Djibouti, and they've had a wonderful night already, the athletes from Djibouti. Yet another East African nation rising to the fore of world middle distance running. Still holding that inside line is Quizera. Has he got the speed, though? Now Ntukuritimana is back in 5th place. He's the athlete, ironically, who did so much of the work in the second half of the race, but he's dropped back to 5th place as they come into the last 200 metres now. Around the bend for the final time. Don't worry about 13 minutes. That's gone. Clock bottom right of your screen tells you that. But 109, looking really strong, is Quizera. 131 sneaking through on the inside is Ismail of Djibouti. And who is it coming through at the latter stages and taking it down the outside? Wow. It wasn't Ntukuritimana, was it? Surely he couldn't come back. 183 there. Jonas Reis of Switzerland. He's a 13:07 performer indoors. He's run a long way under 13 minutes, under 13:20 rather.
Oh, some quality running there. Yeah, Reese has run 13:07 indoors, but that's a good... I know he's had a few injury issues, so the Swiss athlete, a good return there. I think I saw George Mills inside 13:20, so that's a great bit of running. That's great range, and there was a whole host of fast times. Look at that winning time, 13:04, Tim. And I tell you what, it wasn't just one athlete. Look at that shot. It was 4 athletes.
Well,
almost in a line, Tim, going for the tape and the win.
This is the shot we need as they cross the line, not the vertical shot. Now we can identify him. It's Levi Kibet, 103, just 19 years old. This is his first track race of 2023. He was a 13:01 performer last year, did that at the Roman Golden Gala. Doesn't have great speed, ironically, my notes say. He's only run 3:45 for 3,000. He was third in the world under 25,000 in Nairobi back in 2021. I saw him at a 10K in Bangalore 3 weeks ago in India. He was 12th there, where it was steaming hot. But Levi Kibet, 5th in Herzogenaurach at a 10K race in 27:14 back at the end of April. We know he's got enormous strength, but I'll tell you what, he proved there he's got fabulous speed as well. Superb. Yeah, great finishing from the 19-year-old.
He has, and just a couple of seconds outside his lifetime best, but it was about the victory today, and that strength, you saw the finishing times come up on the screen there. That was real depth. That is a quality meeting record by Levi Kibet. That's another name to look out for over the next few weeks. And look at the highlights back now on that. It was a busy pack. Everyone stayed on their feet. Pacer did enough to get the race started. And then what a quality, a 2:31 last kilometre. It brought us back towards 13 minutes, brought us inside that 13:07 world qualifier mark. But that meeting record now, that puts this meeting, the Fast 5000, on the map. But some times out there, I think it was George Beamish, I think it was 7th place, the New Zealander, and also a lifetime best for him, 13:14. So part of that on team out based in the US. He's also made a successful transition to the steeplechase. So we're topping up a bit of endurance today, over 5 kilometres. But Tim, what a quality finish there. Those 5 athletes diving towards that line and a 13:03 winning time.
But 19 years old, James, it is daunting for the non-African nations to try and match this production line that just keeps spewing out amazing talents. I'm going to be visiting Addis Ababa myself in October for the first time ever. In fact, I think it's early November for the Great Ethiopian Run, and I've been told I can go for a jog if I want with some of the Ethiopians and their early morning runs up in Ntoto. And I've not told them yet that the very thought of getting on the bus with them at that time of the morning is more than I can handle. Never mind about trying to go for a jog with them. They are fantastically talented, so focused, and the focus of Levi Kibet there to cross the line in first place was superb. Perfectly judged too. He never really showed himself, did he? Until that last 100. Did it when it mattered.
Yeah, it was a quality finish. He showed his cards very, very late. And I tell you what, put the afterburners on, and there you can see the time there, 13:04:21, the official time there. Ismail there, the 13:04 personal best. And look at that whole host of season's best personal bests. And yeah, that's a quality top 9 there. And that really does, again, showcase the depth. And that's even just the first page of the results. I'm sure the next page is going to be full of PBs and season's best. So it's going to be fascinating to see if that percentage has gone up from 60% in 2001, 68% last year. Cavalry knocked on the door of 70% of lifetime best as more and more of the circus acts will go on. People are going to be partying. I think there's a DJ coming up on set shortly, Tim, as well. So people are going to be partying on into the night. I'll tell you what, some of the runners, they're probably going to be joining them after their successful evening tonight.
Just going back to that result, James. George Beamish of New Zealand, big personal best for him, 13:14.79 in 8th place. That's a personal best by over 5 seconds for the 26-year-old Kiwi. Great running from him. And Jonas Race of Switzerland, 13:13 in 6th. Jan Schrub of France, 13:14. Hosea Kiplangat, 13:15. I mean, the times were great, considering the seesawing tempo of the race. Hosea Kiplangat, by the way, very close to running a personal best. He's run 13:13. He ran 13:15 tonight. All in all, James, a really good tactical cat and mouse affair to close the show at Fast 5000 2023.
Yeah, 14 races, Tim, and finishing with obviously the fastest of the 14 races. And we've gone from a meet record that stood to Ellis Cross at 13:46. Now it stands at 13:04. Women's record's gone from 16 flat to 15:21. We've shattered records here. We've had a world lead in the women's mile. We've had a world qualifying standard, almost had a world lead in the men's 1500, 3:32. And still some amazing performances that happened on the track, and still some amazing performances happening off the track. But remember, this is just the middle part of the on-track nights. It started in Mount Sac, went to Parliament Hill with those amazing nights of the 10,000. In a week's time, it goes to Vienna. I can't wait to see what people throw down in Vienna. Beautiful city. People are going to run very fast there. It's going to be many that this was their kind of tune-up race for that as well. And then that race, some of these athletes I would have thought would be heading, especially with those Olympics in mind, Tim, thinking about trying to get, Olympic qualifying times for the 10,000. That Zatopek 10 in December, that'll be one that a lot of people put in their diaries.
Performance of the night, James, ironically, I suppose intrinsically against other standards, is by Narve Gillian Nordosh of Norway, isn't it? That 3:32, big personal best for him to win that 1,500 metres for the men, but some supreme racing at 5,000 as well that we've enjoyed.
Yeah, Nordosh was unbelievably, phenomenal, 3:32 in the Fast 5000 meet. But again, it showcases Nicky Hiltz, a world lead in the mile as well. Phenomenal performance. And the first of our French finishers now just getting an interview. Wasn't quite a world standard, but again, he's still got a few more weeks to get towards that Shrub, because that was a quality run just outside his lifetime best. But it definitely does set him up for fast running in the future.
Another interview there from one of the French athletes for the spectators present in the arena who have enjoyed such a great evening of racing. In fact, almost a day of racing. They started around midday, these races. The A race for the 5,000, producing great times in depth. Did you say George Mills broke 13:20, James?
I think I saw him coming over the line. I'll wait for the official result, but that would be a real bit of depth. George is a very strong athlete, and I think that him if going sub 13:20, that begs really good even strength for the future of how fast towards that 3:30 mark he can get. So impressive by Mr. Mills tonight.
Very impressive indeed. Well, James, it just remains for us to wrap up, I suppose, after a great evening. Fast 5000 2023, as you say, it moves on now from one venue to the next. This meeting will gain in strength, and from one year to the next, it will gain in strength. And I think the vast majority of neutral viewers would say this format of track and field athletics is here to stay. Yes, it needs tweaking here and there, but it is so magical, so much character, so much additional entertainment provided for everybody in and around the arena. It is quite superb, and I'm all for it. And people say I'm old school.
No, I think what On Running are doing, talking about transforming track culture and bringing running to a wider audience. I think that's exactly what they've done here tonight. They've made it fun, they've made it fast. The
the Fast 5000 is here to stay. And I tell you what, it's going to be on every athlete's calendar in 12 months' time. So I think that gives us time to basically wrap it up here, Tim. So for myself, James Thee, from Tim Hutchins, we hope you've enjoyed tonight's action. We've had some phenomenal performances, Tim, haven't we? And it's been an absolute pleasure being part of it.
It has been superb, yes, James, from the Parc des Sports Montesson to the northwest of Paris, onwards to more great track meetings this summer, and then those World Championships in Budapest. James, I'll leave you with the last word. You're a 1,500-metre runner. I know you will have loved that 1,500 metres, and Nikki Hiltz's performance in that women's mile was stunning too. She looked very, very much in control with that 4:22 world best.
We did, yeah. So from Lourdes is at 3:32. Hiltz's world lead in the mile. Some super performances in the 5,000 metres. And again, we look forward to this meet going bigger and better from the superb on-track night. This is 3 of 5. We hope everyone has super fast times in Vienna next week. So from myself, James Thee, from Tim Hutchins, good night.
Encore des animations à venir sur ce stadium de Montesson. Vous restez avec nous dans quelques instants. Les derniers podiums de celui-ci, FAST5000 On Track Night 2023. On se retrouve du côté du podium. Hésite dans quelques instants à nous rejoindre pour clôturer ce merveilleux meeting que nous avons vécu aujourd'hui. Et en attendant, eh bien, vous l'aurez compris, vous profitez de la nouvelle des food trucks pour vous explorer avant ces derniers podiums de la journée.
Thank you, team.